Okay, good morning, everyone. Nice to see you all. Good morning. Sawadee Krap. Welcome to anyone who's joining online as well. We're going to start off our class with meditation like we do each morning, where we'll do the chanting, then I'll provide you the guidance for breathing mindfulness meditation. There's going to be that period of time of quietness. Then we're going to come out of that with some more chanting. And then I'm going to share with you this morning this eightfold path, the path for all humans to enlightenment. We're going to take our time and walk through this slowly, where we'll spend the entire morning learning this eightfold path. This is the core central teaching of the Buddha. This is the path to enlightenment. If you're interested in getting to the peaceful and joyful mental state that the Buddha describes, this is how to actually do that. And then after our lunch break, then we'll come back and I'm going to teach you all the ins and outs of meditation. And you'll understand where that fits in to the path. So then we can start talking about all the ins and outs of meditation, because you'll understand what we're doing in meditation and why we're doing it and how it fits into the whole package of teachings that the Buddha taught. So if you'd like to join for meditation, I'm going to do the chanting. You guys are welcome to join in, and then I'll come back in with the guidance afterwards. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakawa Bhutang Mahakavanang Apivateyami Sawakato Mahakavata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Sawaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Mahakawa Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammuno Sakato Rokavitu Anutero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatawa Manusana Bhutto Bhagavati. Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath. A nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakewa Otang Mahakewanhang Apivateyami Savakato Mahakewata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakewato Sāvaka Saṅkho Sanghang Namami Namo Arhasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Arhasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Arhasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Mahakewa Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammono Sakato Rokavitu Anutero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatawa Manusanang Poto Bhagavati. Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, welcome to all of you guys. Nice to see everyone here this morning. Welcome to everyone joining us online as well. I'm going to help you guys to understand the Eightfold Path. This is the core central teaching of the Buddha, and it's something that you would need to know inside and out, backwards and forwards, left, right, up, down. This is the path to enlightenment. This is how you're going to be able to achieve enlightenment by understanding this teaching. So this is a teaching that you're going to need to learn. You're going to need to reflect on it, to independently verify it, and practice it. And I suspect you're going to need to learn it multiple times. Most students do. They need to learn it in a class like this. They need to study it on their own. They need to learn it again in a class like this, and again in a class like this, and again in a class like this. It takes time to really commit this to your memory and then to build it up in your day-to-day life. So this isn't something you're going to be able to snap your fingers and instantly understand, or snap your fingers and instantly implement into your day-to-day life. So this is something that you like to gradually chip away at, gradually learning. What you're going to learn here is you're going to learn the natural laws of existence. That's what the Buddha taught, is he helped you to be able to understand the natural laws. And by understanding these natural laws, that's what's going to actually help your mind to be able to awaken. When we talk about awakening to enlightenment, it's about cultivation of wisdom. And the way that you get to that is by learning, examining, investigating, by reflecting to independently verify, and through practicing. You're not believing anything. With belief, you don't know what's true or false. You need to be able to get to wisdom. Because when you lack wisdom, you're going to make unwise decisions. You're going to go out into the world, make certain decisions, and you're going to experience unwholesome results coming back to you. And that's what you've been doing up to this point, just because you lack wisdom of what it is that is important to be able to train your mind to be able to get to this enlightened mental state. So I'm going to take my time and gradually walk you through this. And it's important, as I always emphasize, is just don't believe anything that I say. I'm going to show you how to do this learning, reflection, and practice as I walk you through each factor factor of this. This Eightfold Path, it has 8 individual factors. We're going to start with right view, then we're going to study right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. It's organized into these 3 different sections: wisdom, moral conduct, and mental discipline. One of the ways to think about the Eightfold Path is that if you had a speaker system and you had 8 individual dials and you were trying to tweak those 8 dials to get a better and better sound out of the speakers, that's what you would do, is you would tweak those 8 dials to try to get a better and better sound out of the speakers. Well, your mind is the same way. You can tweak these 8 little dials, these 8 factors in your life, and you'll get a better performing mind. So by learning each one of these and how they all interrelate, you'll actually be able to train your mind and tweak those 8 individual dials. And then you'll spend multiple years tweaking this. And this is what's going to move the mind to enlightenment. So I'm going to start with right view, and just like always, you guys are more than welcome to ask questions. I'm going to pause at various times throughout our talk so that you guys can ask questions, because you're going to need that clarification. So here at the temple, if you guys could use the microphones, and I think you guys are very familiar with how to use those. You press the gray button, hold it up to your chin, you'll see the lights come on, and then if you speak here with a microphone, we'll be able to hear you here at the temple. They'll be able to hear you online as well. If you speak here without a microphone, they won't be able to hear you online. And then you can keep these microphones with you, because you might have more than one question, or someone around you might have a question, and you can share it with them. And then if you could turn it off when you're not using it, that way we won't get feedback through the speakers. And then anyone who's joining on Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, you can put your questions into the comment section and I'll be able to see that. Or in Zoom, you can electronically raise your hand, unmute your microphone, and ask any and all questions that you like that way. Okay, so first, these are the words of the Buddha on right view. Because remember, it's so important to study with the original words of the Buddha. There's not very many people in the world that do that. You need to be sure that if you're going to be able to make your way to enlightenment, to study with his original words. That's what's going to help you to be able to get to enlightenment. You'd be incapable of getting to enlightenment without studying with his original words. So here's what he says about right view. He says, "In what, monks, is right view? It is, monks, the wisdom of discontentedness, the wisdom of the cause of discontentedness, the wisdom of the elimination of discontentedness, and the wisdom of the way of practice leading to the elimination of discontentedness. This is called right view." So what he's doing here in the Eightfold Path is he's pointing to another teaching, and he's saying that's right view over there. And what he's pointing to is the Four Noble Truths. And what I've done underneath of this line is I've put the top section of the Four Noble Truths. There's more beyond this, but I've put this top section so that you'll be able to make that correlation. You'll be able to see, yeah, I can exactly see what the Buddha's doing here. He's pointing to another teaching and saying that that's right view. Because now what I'm going to do is I'm going to teach you the Four Noble Truths to be able to help you understand it. But you need to be able to build this confidence that you can see that indeed he's pointing to the Four Noble Truths, and that's what is right view. In order to understand the Four Noble Truths, you need to first understand the 3 universal truths. We call these truths because the Buddha knew that they were true. I know that they're true. Other people know that they're true, but you need to know that they're true. And that's why you don't believe these. What the Buddha is doing here is he's teaching you the way the world is. He's not going to teach you the way the world should be. He's going to teach you the way the world is, because that's why the mind is struggling and having difficulties in the world, having stress and anxiety and all these other feelings, is because it's living in a world that it doesn't understand. It lacks wisdom. So you need to be able to understand the way the world is, and then you can navigate the world more peacefully. That's the natural laws that you're awakening to. So this first one is called the universal truth of impermanence. This is where the Buddha is helping you to be able to see that the world around you is constantly changing, that there's something called conditioned objects, that they arise, they change, and they fade away. A conditioned object is anything that you can see, hear, smell, taste, anything that comes in contact with the body, or any thoughts or ideas that go through the mind. This is all impermanent, that they're going to arise, they're going to change, they're going to fade away. Essentially, it's temporary, that everything you see around you is constantly in flux. It's constantly changing. These are called conditioned objects. Then there's something called unconditioned objects. They don't arise, they don't change, and they don't fade away. Enlightenment is that way. By the time you get to enlightenment, your mind is then unconditioned because you've purified the mind of all the conditions, all the pollutions. So now that unconditioned mind, enlightenment is a permanent mental state. It doesn't arise, it doesn't change, it doesn't fade away. And the natural laws themselves that the Buddha taught, they don't arise, they don't change, and they don't fade away. This is why his teachings are timeless. What he taught 2,500 years ago is just as applicable today as it was then, because the natural laws don't change. They are unconditioned. So you can learn those teachings, and then you'll be able to awaken the mind because you're learning these natural laws. Now the books and people's memories of these teachings, that's what's changed. But the natural laws themselves haven't actually changed. So this universal truth of impermanence is helping you to understand that everything around you is constantly changing. Okay, so now you don't believe that. That's the intellectual part. That's the learning. That's the part where you're just starting to understand what is the teaching. But now you take it into reflection and you start to try to independently verify whether it's true or it's false. And I encourage you to do this with things that you're familiar with, like starting with this human body. You're familiar with this human body. You can ask yourself, is the body permanent, meaning it's been exactly the same your entire life? Or is the body impermanent, meaning it's constantly changing? So what would you say? Is the body permanent or impermanent? Impermanent, right? We get taller, we get shorter, we get fatter, we get smaller, right? We get pimples and moles, we get gray hair, we start losing our hair, we get wrinkles. All these things are change. Our teeth grow in, then they fall out, then the new ones grow in, then we get cavities. This is just constant change, right? So this body is impermanent. It's constantly changing. What about your relationships? If your relationships are permanent, you've had exactly the same people in your life your entire life. If your relationships are impermanent, you've had people coming and going in and out of your life throughout your entire life. So what would you say? Are your relationships permanent or impermanent? What are they? Impermanent, right? People are constantly coming and going. What about your bank account? Is your bank account permanent or impermanent? It's impermanent, right? It goes up and down, up and down. Some people's goes up, up, up. Some people's go down, down, down. It's constantly changing. What about the weather? Is it permanent or impermanent? Impermanent, right? It's sunny, it's raining. Some places it's sleeting and snowing and hail and typhoons and hurricanes and all kinds of things, right? We could just go on and on and on like this, right? We can look at the trees. We can see that the leaves in the trees are green. The ones on the ground are brown, right? They fell down. That's change. They turned colors. We walk down the sidewalk. We see a crack in the sidewalk. That's impermanence. You see that we had a certain number of people here in the class yesterday. Now we have a different number of people, right? This is change. You see that the wood planks on the floor of the temple, some of them are longer or shorter. They're different colors, different textures, different things like this. This is all change. Okay. So you need to deeply soak this into your mind so that you get to wisdom, right? Because then you have the wisdom that absolutely you can see that this is a universal truth, that everything around you is constantly changing. And if you don't see that yet, take some time to do that. Today, tomorrow, the next day, walk around the world. Try to find something that's permanent. If you can find something that you see, hear, smell, taste, that touches the body or goes through the mind that's permanent, then you've disproven this. It's not a universal truth. But you won't be able to find anything like that because the only unconditioned objects are enlightenment and the natural laws of existence. Okay, so you're going to need to deeply soak this into the mind because this is a building block to help you understand the Four Noble Truths when we get to that. The next one is the universal truth of discontentedness. This is where the Buddha describes to you what the unenlightened mind experiences. Now, some people refer to this as suffering. If you've studied the teachings of the Buddha in other places, you might have heard that word being used. But I don't use it because it doesn't really accurately represent what the Buddha was teaching. So I'm going to share with you what the Buddha teaches here, and then I'm going to circle back and explain to you why I don't use that word. The original word in the Pali Canon, which is the original source teachings of the Buddha, is a word called dukkha. This word dukkha translates to discontent, discontented, or discontentedness. The Buddha describes that the unenlightened mind has three feelings: pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and feelings that are neither painful nor pleasant. These are called conditioned feelings. What the pleasant feelings are things like happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, euphoria. Those are occurring based on some condition. Then there's painful feelings like sadness, anger, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety. These are all very painful to experience. And once again, they're conditioned based on some condition. Then there's neither painful nor pleasant. I put boredom and loneliness here, but some people tell me that's painful for them. So you could put that in the painful category if you like. But shyness is a good example of that. It's not painful. It's not pleasant. It's neither painful nor pleasant. Or if you were sitting on public transportation and somebody came and sat really close to you that you didn't know, and your body was touching their body, you probably say, it's not painful, it's not pleasant. Maybe you're uncomfortable or displeased, unsatisfied in that situation. That's what the neither painful nor pleasant feelings are. So these are conditioned feelings. Based on some condition, the mind's going to experience this feeling. So for example, an unenlightened being will wake up in the morning, they'll see it's sunny outside, and they'll get happy. Oh my goodness, it's sunny. Oh, I'm going to go hiking today. I've been wanting to go on that hiking trail for so long and it's been raining. I'm going to call my friends. We're going to go have a good time. Oh, this is going to be so fun. Yay, it's sunny outside. So now you go take a shower and you come out and it's raining, and then now you're sad, right? Because you based your happiness on the sun. That's a conditioned feeling, and the mind is happy based on that condition. But that sun is not permanent, so your happiness isn't permanent either. This is why you haven't been able to get to permanent happiness, because your mind's forming conditioned feelings. If you get really happy when your bank account balance is up here, when it goes down here, you'll be sad or frustrated. This is a conditioned feeling. Essentially, what the unenlightened mind is doing is having multiple conditions. And if those are met, it will then experience pleasure. So if my mom and dad do this, if my brothers and sisters do this, if my boss does this, if the weather is this, if my bank account is this, if I have this kind of house and this kind of car, and I have a boyfriend or girlfriend or a husband or wife, if I have children, all the way down the list, and now I'll be happy. So that means your happiness shrinks. Your ability to be happy just shrinks because there's all these conditions that have to be met. And those things can't all be true all the time. So an enlightened being doesn't function that way. Their mind has been trained to not do that. Their enlightened being, when they wake up in the morning, they're already happy. They're already happy. There's no condition that needs to be met in order for there to be happiness. They see it's sunny outside. It's like, sweet, it's sunny outside. I'd like to go hiking. I'm going to call my friends. We're going to have a good time. This is going to be outstanding. Now you go take a shower. You come out and it's raining. It's like, oh, it's raining. Okay, well, I guess we're not going hiking. Maybe I'll go to the mall. Maybe I'll invite my friends over or cook some food. Maybe I'll just stay home and read a book. No big deal, right? You didn't base your happiness on the sun, so therefore when the sun is gone, you can maintain your happiness, you can maintain your joy. Bank accounts up here, you were already happy before you even looked at your bank account. And then when you look at your bank account 3 days later and it goes down here, you're still happy, right? Because you didn't base your feelings on a condition. It's not conditional happiness. It's unconditional happiness. There doesn't need to be any condition met for this happiness to exist in the mind. Okay, so this is what an unenlightened being experiences. Pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and neither painful nor pleasant. And these are conditioned feelings. You need to be able to see the pleasant feelings as just as much a part of the problem as the painful ones. Because if you allow the mind to experience conditioned pleasant feelings, it's only a matter of time before you experience the painful ones. So for example, if I got really excited because I got a brand new job, right? Say you get a brand new job and you get really excited about that. Well, 5 years later, when the company goes out of business or they lay you off or you get fired, you'll be angry, you'll be sad or frustrated. And you don't necessarily relate the two. You don't realize that because you allowed your mind to get excited based on the condition of having this job, when that condition is no longer met, your mind's going to end up in the painful feelings. So if you allow your mind to get really happy and excited when your bank account's here, when it goes here, you'll get sad or frustrated. The painful feelings are waiting for you right around the corner. Your mom calls you and says, hey, I heard you got a brand new house. I'm going to come visit you this weekend. I'm going to make that favorite food that you've always liked your whole life. I'm going to come over and see you. And you're like, oh, that's so wonderful, Mom. I can't wait to see you. Oh, it's going to be great. Well, then she calls you on Friday and says, hey, I had a change of plans. I'm sorry, I can't come. Now you'll be sad. Now you'll be frustrated. Okay. So if you allow the mind to get conditioned pleasant feelings, the painful ones are waiting for you right around the corner, because this condition is impermanent. It can't be permanent. It can't be there forever. So what you're looking to do to get to enlightenment is get beyond the conditionality of these feelings, so that you can get to unconditioned happiness, unconditioned joy, where your mind just can always be joyful and always happy. Okay, so we're going to talk about how to accomplish that with the Eightfold Path. But now we need to independently verify this universal truth, because I just explained to you what the unenlightened mind experiences in terms of conditioned feelings, and that there's these three feelings: pleasant, painful, neither painful nor pleasant. But you don't believe that. You need to move it into reflection to be able to see if it's true or false. Because if it's true and it's actual wisdom, you should be able to independently verify it. So you know that your mind is unenlightened. Look at your life, look at the feelings that you've experienced over the course of your life, and ask yourself, is this explaining that for you? Is there any feeling that you experience that doesn't fit into one of these three categories: pleasant, painful, or neither painful nor pleasant? Right? And if you think there's a feeling that doesn't fit into one of these three categories, when we get to the question period, let me know and I will help you to be able to understand. Okay. Now I'm going to circle back and help you understand why I don't use the word suffering. I use the word discontent, discontented, or discontentedness, because this is describing the mind being shaken up. It's unsteady. It's unstable. And once again, the pleasant feelings are just as much a part of the problem as the painful ones. But if you use the word suffering, it's describing the painful feelings really well. Right? It describes that really well. When you're angry, when you're frustrated, when you're feeling guilt and shame and stress and anxiety, we might say you're suffering. But would you say that you would be suffering if your boss came in and told you were getting a $20,000 raise, and now each year you're going to be getting an extra $20,000, and you got so excited about that? Would you be suffering at that point? Probably not. Or if your mom called you and said she was coming to visit you this weekend and you got so excited about that, would you say you were suffering in that situation? Probably not, right? Or that person you don't know that came and sits next to you on the public transportation and your body's touching their body. Would you say you were suffering in that situation? That's the neither painful nor pleasant feelings. Probably not, right? So this word suffering describes about 33% of what the Buddha is talking about here. And you would be missing about 66% of his teachings. So if you're missing 66% of a teacher's teachings, how could you ever get to the goal? So you need to be able to see the full spectrum of feelings and emotions that the Buddha is talking about here. And that's where the word discontent, discontented, and discontentedness describes this much better. So that's why I used this particular word. Okay? Then there's this universal truth of non-self. And I apologize, I still haven't adjusted the projector, but if somebody would like to adjust it, you guys are more than welcome to. This universal truth of non-self. This is the third universal truth. Okay? This actually is a solution for one of the problems that the Buddha discovered in the mind. So I'm going to explain a little bit more about that problem, and then I'll talk about the universal truth of non-self, because it's the solution. We were actually talking about this problem yesterday. In the 10 fetters, if you remember those 10 pollutions, the first one is called personal existence view. This is where the mind has the confusion, the misunderstanding that this body or this mind is you, where the mind is clinging to a self-image or a self-identity, wanting to be perceived by others a certain way. And when you go out into the world and you're being perceived that way, you feel good, you feel happy. But when you're not being perceived that way, you'll have a painful feeling where you're maybe angry or frustrated or embarrassed or some other discontent feeling. So for example, if you went out into the world and you spilled spaghetti sauce or chocolate ice cream on your clothing and you were embarrassed in that situation, that's personal existence view. The mind is clinging to this body, wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way. And when you had that spaghetti sauce or that chocolate ice cream on your clothing, you weren't being perceived the way you wanted to be perceived. And that's why the embarrassment rose up in the mind. Or say you went to the mirror and you saw a wrinkle or a mole or a pimple or a gray hair, or you started losing your hair and you were shaken up by that. That was your personal existence view. The mind wanted to be perceived by others in a certain way. It was clinging to this body, thinking that this is who you are, and the mind wasn't getting what it wanted, which was to be perceived by others a certain way. Or if you stood in front of your closet, thinking about all the people you're going to see today and maybe how you wanted to appear, and you were thinking about certain clothes you wanted to wear. Maybe there's that favorite shirt or that favorite pair of pants, and you were looking around for that to try to wear it. That's your personal existence view. You might have even put on some clothes, looked in the mirror, and you're like, no, that's not how I want to look today. And you switched everything up and you looked in the mirror again. And you're like, no, that's not how I want to look today. You put on this third set. You're like, okay, that's how I want to look. And now you felt comfortable to go outside, right? That's your personal existence view. Or if you were like me, when I was a teenager, I used to get out the gel and the mousse and run it through my hair, get every little hair in exactly the right spot. And I didn't feel comfortable going out to school unless I had every little hair in exactly the right spot. And sometimes I did this for so long, I would miss the school bus on my way to school, right? So this was personal existence view. Clinging to the body, thinking that this is who you are, and wanting other people to perceive you a certain way. And you can only feel comfortable in that situation, right? Then there's the self-identity, that the mind can cling to a certain identity of who you think you are. This can be about your culture, your ethnicity, your sexual orientation, your nationality, your job or occupation. You can cling to any number of things of who you think you are. So let's just say, for example, you were in a relationship and you had this, I am a boyfriend, I am a girlfriend, and you're clinging to this identity. Or I am a husband, I am a wife, right? And now when you're in the relationship, you have a certain amount of comfort. But when you guys break up, you're not comfortable with that, because now I am single, and the mind doesn't identify that way. So you might have felt like you wanted to hurry up and get right back into another relationship. The mind thought that was the way to solve it. Or say that you were in a job or occupation, and now in that job, say, I am a police officer. And now when you're doing that job, you felt great, you felt wonderful. But then when you retire or you get fired or you get laid off, you're not doing that job anymore. Maybe you're driving a taxi. Now your mind's disgruntled, right? It doesn't feel whole. It doesn't feel like the same person that you were before, because part of this identity that you thought that you were a police officer, it's not intact any longer. Or say that you're at a restaurant and you have in your mind, I am German, or I am American, or I am Brazilian, or I am Chinese, or I am Czech, right? Any of this I am Russian, right? And if you have this in your mind that I am this, and now somebody's talking positively about that, they're saying all these positive things, you'll be like, wow, they're talking about me. Wow. But then 2 tables over, someone else is talking negatively about where you come from in the nationality that you have. They say all Americans are blah, 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 blah. Oh, now you're frustrated, right? Because they're talking about me. Well, what the Buddha teaches you is that this isn't you. This isn't who you are. This identity that you're clinging to, thinking that this is who you are, it's just getting in your way of the peace and joy. Because some people are going to talk positively about that, and some people are going to talk negatively about that. And as long as you cling to it, this isn't permanent. So when you're not experiencing what you want, you're going to be shaken up by that. So if long as you cling to any identity of who you think you are, you're going to be shaken up. I'll give you an example of this. One time a student called me after and contacted me. We had a personal discussion, personal guidance session. And he's like, David, I need your help. I said, okay, what's going on? He said, ever since COVID, I keep going into these places that I used to go into before, and I don't feel comfortable. He says, I'm a great tipper. I'm a really great tipper. But ever since COVID, I go into these places where I used to just order a cup of coffee. And now in the past, I would just give them cash and they would give me my money back and no big deal. But I can't do that anymore because they have this contactless payment. and I have to swipe the computer screen because they turn around their computer screen. And now the computer screen says, do you want to tip 20%, 25%, 30%? And he's like, I just gave them like an order. It took them 30 seconds to take my order and make my coffee. Why should I have to tip them? I am a great tipper, David. I'm a great tipper, but I feel so uncomfortable in this situation where I don't tip. Normally I tip everywhere, but this place I don't tip, and I feel so uncomfortable. I don't understand. I am a great tipper. Well, that's your personal existence view. Your mind has the identity that I am a great tipper. And as long as you tip, you feel great. But when you're not tipping, you don't feel good about that, right? Because that identity isn't intact. In fact, some people have this so much, they might go to their family in their home country and they say, Mom, Dad, I don't even know who I am anymore. I need to go find myself. I need to go find my true self. I don't know who I am. And they might come to a place like Thailand to find themselves, right? And now you come to Thailand and you're looking for yourself. You're trying to find yourself. You're trying to find your true self. But what the Buddha is helping you to see is that there is no self. You're not going to find yourself here in Thailand because it doesn't exist. The universal truth of non-self is helping you to understand that this body is not you. This mind is not you. This self-image is not you. This mind, these identity that you're clinging to, it's not who you are as a person. Someone might come to Thailand and they find new friends, new hobbies, new activities, maybe even a new job, and they might go back home to Thailand like, yay, I found myself. I know who I am again. Yay, I feel so great, right? But then 5 years later, when all that stuff changes, because it will change because of impermanence, now they don't know who they are anymore. Right? So because the world is impermanent, if you cling to anything as who you think you are, when it changes, you'll be lost and confused because it's going to change. This body's going to change. The mind's going to change. All of this stuff's going to change. So the mind in the unenlightened state is trying to hold on and cling to something as who you think you are. And what the Buddha is teaching you as part of the universal truth of non-self is that there is no self. And you eventually need to get to the point where you realize non-self, where you strip away all of this and you no longer cling to any of it as who you think you are as a person. Okay, so this is the intellectual part of learning about the universal truth of non-self. But now let's take it into reflection, because this is sometimes a challenging one for people to be able to understand. If you don't understand it 100% right now, it's okay, right? It takes time to understand this particular teaching. Some students, I've spent time with them, upwards of a year before they'll understand this. But here, let's reflect on it so that you can start to see that it's not true, that there isn't a self, there is no self. Think about yourself when you were a child, when you were a teenager, early adulthood, and then now. Think about these 4 phases of your life. Have you thought about yourself in the same way through all those 4 phases of life in terms of your character and your personality? Or have you viewed yourself as different through all those 4 phases of life? What would you say? What's that? You've been different, right? It's been constantly changing. So you can see there's no permanent self. Here's another way. If your arm's amputated and you only have one hand and one arm, are you less of a person? Joe says no. You say no? What's that?
Absolutely.
Yeah, you're less of a person, right? So here you can see intellectually, you understand that this body is not you. You understand that intellectually. But the confusion with personal existence view, that's how I explained it, right? It's confusion. The mind is misunderstanding. It thinks this body is you. So intellectually, you understand this body is not you. But in the heat of the moment, if someone's like, wow, you look so beautiful in that dress, that color really brings out the colors of your eyes. Wow, you look so handsome in that shirt. Wow. You're like, wow, you're talking about me. I feel good, right? But then also when somebody says something negative and degrading about this body, right, then you get angry or frustrated, right? So intellectually, you understand that this body is not you. Otherwise, you would answer that question differently. Because if I asked if you had an amputated arm, are you less of a person? You say, yeah, I'm less of a person because there's less body, so I'm less of a person. So intellectually, you know that this body is in you. But the confusion, the misunderstanding that the mind has that personal existence view. In the heat of the moment, when somebody says something either positively or negatively, you're going to have emotions about that. You're going to have feelings about it. That's your personal existence view. So you need to get to the point where you realize non-self. Here's another thing. Point to yourself. Where are you? Can you point to yourself? Maybe everyone's realized non-self. Nobody's pointing. Oh, you're pointing here? Okay, that's a common place people to point. Some people point here, right? So if you're pointing here, ask yourself, what are you pointing to? What is this? Literally, you need to look at what you're pointing to. It's a shirt. It's a shirt. That's what you're pointing to. Okay, so is this shirt you? Is that shirt you're wearing? Is the clothing you're wearing? Is that you? Like if you took off the clothes and pointed to it, is that you? Is that who you are? That shirt you're wearing? That's not you, right? Okay, so let's throw away the shirt. Where are you? Someone might point again. What are we pointing to? Skin, right? So is that skin you? That skin you've got, is that who you are? Right? If we took off the skin and we held it up and we pointed to it, is that you, your skin? That's not you, right? So we throw away the skin. So then we say, where are you? So we might point again. We've got bones, we've got muscle tissue, we've got organs and fluid. None of those bits and pieces and parts are you. But the mind keeps clinging to these things, thinking that this is you. That's the personal existence view. So you need to be able to train the mind to gradually realize non-self, where you get to the point where you're not clinging to any of these things as who you think you are as a person. This takes time because all throughout our life, we've been accumulating what we think is ourself ever since birth, right? Because each one of us were given labels. I don't know all of your labels, but my label is David, right? You guys got a label too, right? And at some point, you got that label and then you started assigning personality and character and all these other things to it. We even have national flags, national anthems and sports teams and things like this that people cheer for because I am American, so I should cheer for the American team because I am American, right? Or I am Polish, right? Whatever it is that our mind is holding on to, you'll hold on to that and identify as that. So we've been accumulating this. The mind's been conditioned this way to think that this is who you are, all these different things. So you're going to need to strip this away. And it just takes time to be able to do that. So I'm going to pause here and see if you guys have any questions on any of these three before we move on into the Four Noble Truths. Do you guys have any questions on the three universal truths? Yeah, feel free to help yourself. You guys hear some impermanence out there? That's impermanence, right?
Yes. I thought about that, yes. So David, I have a question. So do I understand non-self? I think I'm progressing in understanding non-self, but still, just to clarify. So there is a being, which is me, but I am changing, right? So if I don't clinch to that I'm a certain way or a certain person, because I need to understand then, I just need to call myself somehow. So if I can call myself being, this is already helpful. Because does it mean that I'm just constantly changing? And if I don't clinch on anything that I am a certain way, is it then non-self? Do I understand it properly?
Not 100%, but yes, you're leaning in that direction. So there is a body, there is a mind, and they've come together for this existence. And we refer to that as a person or a being, a human being. But it's not me. It's not who I am. So part of the challenge in helping the mind to realize non-self is the English language is unfitting for describing what truly is happening. Because we will say things like, I am thirsty. That's not true. The truth is the body needs water. That's the truth. Or we'll say, I am angry, right? You're not angry. The mind is experiencing anger. That's truly what's happening. So we use all these words in ways that is actually not really representing true reality. So part of what you need to do to be able to realize non-self, and I teach a whole class about an hour and a half just about how to realize non-self. Now I'm just introducing you to it, but I teach a whole class for about an hour and a half. Part of the things that you do is you change your language a bit, the way that you talk. Like here in Thailand, their language, they don't speak in the first person. Like if my son comes home from school, I don't say, how was your day at school? I would say, how was Bailan's day at school? Right? Using his name. Because the Thai language was created about 500 years ago, from my understanding, maybe 300 to 500 years ago. Buddhism was here about 800 to 1200 years ago. So when they created their language, they created it with the understanding of the Buddha's teachings and what the mind needed to be able to do. So you usually speak in the third person. So I don't say in Thai, I wouldn't say I am hungry. I would say David is hungry, referring to this being in the third person, right? So English language, we don't do that. It kind of sounds a little bit odd, but there are ways for you to be able to do that in the English language. And you do that for a temporary period of time where you kind of change your language and modify your language a bit, and it helps your mind. But then over time, it's just easier to sometimes say, hey, I'm going to the movies. Would you like to go to the movies? But your mind is disassociated with this I. So when you were speaking, there was still you saying, well, I understand there's a body, I understand there's a mind, and this is me. That's what you said. So that's the part where the self is still holding on, that personal existence view is still holding on. You need to be able to see that, yes, there is a body, there is a mind, but it's not me. It's not who I am as a person. We sometimes even use the decisions that we make to try to define who we are. Sometimes people think that I am an alcoholic or I am an addict. Right? This is sometimes what people teach you, that if you use drugs and alcohol at some point in your life, then I am an addict, I am an alcoholic. No, that's not true. This being used to make the choice to use drugs and alcohol in the past, but that doesn't define who I am as a person today. But, I understand why those people teach that, because they're trying to teach you to never go back to drugs and alcohol. But identifying with I am an addict or I am an alcoholic, there can be guilt and shame around that, and thinking that somehow I'm less of a person, where that's not going to promote the enlightened mind. So it's a matter of understanding that we make choices and decisions in our life, but those choices and decisions don't define who we are as a person. So, yeah.
But then, do I need to define who I am? Just like...
Your mic went out again. You're a being. You asked, you need to define who you are, right? The microphone's impermanent. The Buddhist teachings even describe modern technology, right? That's how true they are. Yeah, you can set that one to the side, and we can change the batteries at break time.
Great. So, it just, because I was like, we are all taught to kind of define ourselves. So I would like to understand. So I may be a traveling being or soul, in different. Mm-hmm. Like now I'm a human. Maybe I was something else before. So, like, just to try to understand. So, who are we then?
There's still that I in there. You're still grasping at something. That's what the mind's going to keep doing. If I'm not the body and I'm not the mind, then what am I? The mind's going to keep trying to grab something, and you got to let go of all of that, right? Like at one point I thought that I am an entrepreneur because I was in business, right? So when I started moving into sharing the teachings of the Buddha, the mind was a little bit challenged with that, because I kept holding on to this, I am an entrepreneur, I'm a business owner, and the mind had to be willing to let that go as an identity so that it could do something that it really felt was the best thing to be doing in this life. So your mind's going to be constantly grabbing at something to try to find who you are, and you got to get to the point where you're not grabbing at any of that stuff. But there's more training that you need to learn in order to be able to get to that point. You can't just think about it and accomplish that. There's training that needs to happen to be able to get to that point. Mm-hmm. Okay, I think you had a question, ma'am.
I understand the pleasant feelings are conditioned, but I don't understand why they belong to the discontentedness.
Have you ever been so excited that you trip and fell or you broke something? Have you ever had that experience? Not yet? Okay. So if you ever have that experience, you'll know that your mind's shaken up. It's unsteady. It's unstable in that situation. Because when you allow your mind to have conditioned feelings, that means that it's only when that condition is met that you can experience that thing. So discontentedness is where your mind's shaken up. It's unsteady. It's unstable. And the conditioned pleasant feelings are part of that your mind is shaken up during that period of time where you're experiencing that excitement. And it's conditional excitement, meaning you can only be excited when a certain thing is occurring, a certain condition is met. So that means when that condition isn't met, your mind's going to be in the painful feelings over here with the anger, the sadness, the frustration, and others. So you need to be able to see how allowing your mind to have conditioned pleasantness, then the painful feelings are going to be waiting right around the corner. I think you might understand this a bit more when we talk about the Four Noble Truths, because then you'll be able to understand what's causing these pleasant feelings and what's causing the painful feelings more closely, because I haven't talked about that yet. So once I teach the Four Noble Truths, if you still are having challenges with this, ask some more questions and I'll help you. Okay. Oh, you have a question? Yep.
My questions are also questions about how I can practice in my life. We're always talking about mind. Where is our soul? I can understand, because everyone have own reason why they're here. But what about me? How I feel it? I feel that I have mind and soul, and it's always fighting. And all my life I was listening my mind and never feel my soul. And now I would practice meditate. I want to stop my mind and feel my soul and follow my heart. And many I don't know it's true or not, but many people talk about if you would feel your soul, you have to stop your mind. You have to all questions you can find inside you. Now I have so many questions, and I don't want to feel find these questions from psychology or some magical things or other things. I would find inside myself.
Okay.
And and soul, can it be permanent or not permanent? Because today you told about the Buddha, it's have very huge memory, right? And how it can remember your last life? It's, I think our soul can remember last life, right? Because mine will be there for sure. But how?
So the Buddha never taught that there is a soul or that there isn't a soul.
Yes,
he left it as an undeclared teaching. And it's best for you to think of it in the same way, because we don't have any tangible evidence that there is a soul, and we don't have any tangible evidence that there isn't a soul. And remember, you're looking to get to wisdom, to be able to see the truth for yourself. And there's no evidence that there is a soul, and there's no evidence that there isn't a soul. So the Buddha left it as an undeclared teaching. He actually describes it as an undeclared teaching. And that's the best way to do that, because everything you're working on is to train your mind. And if you train your mind, you'll see that you'll be completely peaceful and joyful. It has nothing to do with a soul. So if you just leave that as an undeclared teaching within your own mind, that you don't have any evidence that there is a soul, and there's no evidence that there isn't a soul, and just leave it as an undeclared teaching, that's the best way to approach this, because that's the true wisdom. I can see you don't like that answer. Remember, the mind in the unenlightened state is going to try to cling to what it currently thinks about the world. Yeah. The mind in the unenlightened state is going to cling to its current perceptions about the world, but you'll never get to the wisdom that you need to get to enlightenment if you just cling to what you currently think about the world. So you'll see in the next factor why this is so important when we get to right intention. Okay. All right. So now I'm going to move to one more building block, and then I'm going to teach you the Four Noble Truths. There's craving, desire, attachment, wants, expectation, holding, grasping, clinging. You need to understand what this word is because it comes up in the Four Noble Truths. What this means is a mental longing for something with a strong eagerness. The mind is chasing after the objects of its affection. It's like the next new shiny object waiting around the corner is going to produce some lasting satisfaction. It's like an unquenchable thirst that the mind is pulling towards something. If you've ever been in the mall and you saw a brand new pair of shoes and you were like, oh, brand new pair of shoes. Yes, yes, yes. Oh, I can't wait to get those on my feet, right? That's the longing, yearning. It's not the object itself that is the craving, desire, attachment. It's the way the mind is longing, yearning for the object. Or it might have been a video game or jewelry, or it might have been like a boyfriend or girlfriend. Like, oh, if I just had a boyfriend or girlfriend, the world would be so much better. It'd be so perfect. Or, oh, if I just had more money, that's going to solve everything. Oh, a bigger house, a nicer car. Oh, that's going to make everything better. The mind is longing, yearning. It's trying to get satisfaction from something external, right? And the mind's trying to latch onto that. So that's the craving, the desire, the longing, the yearning, the pulling towards things. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? Yeah. You know what I'm talking about? The pulling towards. Okay. So now let's look at the Four Noble Truths. The first noble truth is explaining the problem. The second is explaining the cause of the problem. The third is explaining the elimination of it. And the fourth is explaining the path forward and how to provide the complete solution to fixing the problem. So the problem that the Buddha discovered is that everyone that is unenlightened will experience discontentedness. Meaning everyone will experience conditioned feelings. That's what the unenlightened mind is experiencing. Conditioned pleasant feelings, conditioned painful feelings, and then the neither painful nor pleasant. So this is the problem you're experiencing, that your mind isn't stable, it's not steady, it's going up and down and up and down. It's only a matter of time before you get angry and frustrated or irritated or annoyed about something. It's only a matter of time. You'll get happy and excited, but then you'll get annoyed and frustrated. Then you'll get agitated. Then you'll get shy and embarrassed. Then you'll become disappointed. You'll have periods of time of peace here and there where your mind's, calm, but it's only a matter of time before something happens that triggers the mind and now it experiences that conditioned feeling. So this is the problem, that it experiences conditioned feelings. The second noble truth is explaining the cause of that problem. Discontentedness, those conditioned feelings, is caused by our own cravings, desires, attachments, because the mind wants everything to be permanent when everything in the world is impermanent. So I'm going to say that a few times, and I'm going to give you some examples. Discontentedness, the pleasant feelings, painful feelings, neither painful nor pleasant, is caused by the craving, desire, attachment, the longing, the yearning, the chasing after the objects of your affection. The mind's wanting things to be permanent, but yet everything around you is impermanent. It's constantly changing. Okay, so here's some examples. Think back to that boyfriend or girlfriend that you got together with. Maybe when you guys first got together, you're really happy. You're really excited. You got this new person in your life. They're showing you affection. They're calling you and checking in on you, sending you text messages. Maybe they're inviting you out to the movies, to dinner. Maybe you're going to the park and having great conversations. Maybe you're having intimate contact. You're having sex, right? All this pleasure in the mind. And now over time, this relationship becomes more and more challenged. And now all of a sudden you guys break up. And now when you guys break up, you're angry or frustrated or lonely or bored, or maybe you're missing this person, right? This isn't from your love. Love is a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. That doesn't cause painful feelings. What's causing the painful feelings is the mind is holding on and craving permanence. It's wanting this relationship to be permanent when in reality it is impermanent. It was always impermanent. All the way from the beginning. Even if you guys were together for the rest of your life, more likely than not, one of you would have died first, right? And if the mind's holding on and craving permanence when this person is no longer in your life anymore, the mind struggles and has difficulties during that period of time. You can see this if you've had people close to you that have died, like grandma and grandpa, mom or dad, brothers or sisters, people like this, that as long as they were alive, your mind was getting what it wanted. It was getting the pleasant feelings, because if the mind's cravings are getting fulfilled, you'll get pleasant feelings. But when your cravings aren't getting fulfilled, you'll get the painful feelings. So when grandma and grandpa die, the mind grieves and has sorrow and have sadness. You're not a bad person. You haven't done anything wrong. It's just that the mind is holding on and craving permanence. And as long as the mind's getting what it wants, it feels happy, it feels excited. But when it's not getting what it wants, it gets the painful feelings. You can see this at a wedding. If you've ever been to a wedding and maybe people around you were crying or you were crying, right? Maybe mom or dad or brothers or sisters are crying because here goes somebody off into the world with someone else. And mom and dad realize, like, oh my goodness, my little baby is not permanent. They're going off into the world with someone else. And now the individual cries, right? They're grieving, right? Or think back to school. If you remember getting dropped off at university, or if you remember getting dropped off at grade school, or if you've seen this happen, right? Parents are dropping their kids off at school and the kids are crying, they're upset, right? They thought mom and dad were permanent. They're holding on and craving permanence. And mom and dad might be crying too, right? Love is a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. If you're sending your kid off to school, that's helping them to get an education. That's not what's causing the painful feelings, because you're doing something that's wonderful for your child. You're sending them off to school. That doesn't cause painful feelings. What's causing the painful feelings is the mind is holding on and craving for this being to be permanent in your life, when in reality they are impermanent. Sometimes you're going to be together, sometimes you're going to be apart. But if the mind craves permanence, when you're apart, you'll be bored or lonely, or you'll be missing this person, or you'll be angry or frustrated or something like this. Here's another example that doesn't involve relationships. Sometimes people can see it more clearly with this. Let's just say you bought a brand new car and you were really excited and happy about this brand new car because you've been wanting this car for a really long time and you saved up for it. And it's your dream car. It's the car you've always wanted to buy. And now you purchase it and you drive off the parking lot and you feel so proud of your brand new car. And then you park it at a store and you go inside and you come out and there's a scratch on your car. Oh my goodness. You might be so frustrated and so angry, right? Well, what's happening here? It's not the scratch that's causing you to be angry. It's not the person who scratched your car. It's the mind's craving permanence, wanting this car to be permanently beautiful, when in reality, this car is not permanent. It's going to experience impermanence. The paint's going to fade. The tires are going to need to be changed. The upholstery is going to get ripped and torn. This car is not permanent. But if you crave permanence, when your car has that scratch, you'll be frustrated, you'll be agitated or annoyed. And it's not the other person that's causing that, it's your own mind. We're not talking about what's wise or unwise in this situation, right? Because when we walk through a parking lot, we aspire not to scratch anybody's car, right? But the fact is that this car is going to get a scratch. It's only a matter of time, right? It's going to happen, right? So the mind is causing its own discontentedness because the mind is craving permanence, wanting things to be permanent, when in reality you live in an impermanent world. And if the mind gets what it wants, it gets happy and excited. But if it doesn't get what it wants, it gets angry or frustrated or sad or some other discontent feeling. And when those painful feelings are arising, it's very uncomfortable for the mind. And what the mind will typically do is it'll attribute these feelings to something external. It'll think that mom and dad are making you angry or frustrated, or it's brothers and sisters that are causing you to be angry. And when the mind becomes unskillful, thinking that the problem is external, then the mind will push people away. You might have pushed away friends or family in your life, thinking that that was going to solve the problem. But you can see that that didn't solve the problem because you still get angry, you still get frustrated or annoyed. If this person was the problem or the cause of the problem, when you push them out of your life, you'd be completely peaceful from that point forward. Now, surely they could have been doing something unwise, but that's not what was causing you to be angry or frustrated. It was the mind craving and expecting this person to do things your way. And the mind's craving permanence. So as long as you have a craving for permanence, it's only a matter of time before you run across somebody that doesn't do things your way. And now the mind will want to push that person away, or it'll push the situation away. This is called aversion. Or you might be bitter, harsh, and hostile to people through your intentions, your speech, and your actions. It's like an animal growling and roaring at another animal. It's like, roar, right? Or the third thing you might do is put your expectations on people and try to control people and force them to do things your way, pressuring them to do things your way. And people might be doing this to you too, pushing you away, being bitter, harsh, and hostile, or putting your expectations on you, trying to control you and force you to do things a certain way. That's because the mind doesn't understand. It doesn't have the wisdom of the second noble truth. The mind doesn't understand that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. The mind in the unenlightened state will firmly believe that it's something external that's causing these feelings. So that's why you don't believe these teachings. Don't believe what I'm sharing with you here. It's time to independently verify this, right? Because now I just helped you with the intellectual part. Now let's move into reflection. You need to independently verify what I'm sharing. So look at a recent situation where you've been angry, you've been frustrated, agitated, or annoyed, or some other discontent feeling. Might have been this morning, might have been yesterday or last week. Look at that situation with these fresh eyes, because at that time you might have been trying to blame somebody else, because that's what the mind usually does. It tries to look for someone else to blame, because it can't be me, right? Everyone else is the problem, right? It can't be me. It has to be everyone else, right? But now look at it with these fresh eyes. What was it that your mind was longing and yearning for? And if you would have got it, you would have been happy. But you didn't get what you wanted, so the mind was angry or sad or frustrated, some other discontent feeling. You should be able to see it yourself, but if you can't, let me know and I will help you. Because there's been plenty of people over the years that have shared different things with me. I've had students contact me about all different kinds of stuff. Right? I'll share one story with you. One time a student contacted me, they're like, David, we got to talk about these Four Noble Truths. Like, David, I went to work the other day and my house looked beautiful. And I came home after work and my wife had this craft project all over the house. And I walked in and I instantly got frustrated and annoyed. And I don't understand why. My wife calls me to be angry? She's the one who messed up the house. How did I cause this? I wasn't even there, right? And I was like, nope, it was your own mind that caused this. Your mind was craving your house to look a certain way permanently. And it's just not possible. Your house looked a certain way when you went to work and you were expecting it to look that same way when you came home. The only thing that happened was change. That's all that happened. Because one of the ways to say this is that your mind craves permanence. Another way to say this is that your mind does not like impermanence. It doesn't like change, right? Look at your life and all the situations where you are experiencing change. That was a time that you were struggling the most. You change jobs, change relationships, change living locations, things like this. Whenever you are experiencing change, that's when your mind was having the biggest challenges, right? Because the mind craves permanence in the unenlightened state. It lacks wisdom. It doesn't understand the world around you is impermanent. So you need to be able to see this for yourself and look at a bunch of different situations. And if you need some more examples, I'll give you guys plenty of examples, right? There's plenty of them out there. So let me know when we get to the question period if you need help with that one. Because when you understand the cause, this is really helpful. Because when you learn that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, while that can be impactful for you, it's actually very empowering. Because if it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, that means you can eliminate them. If it's somebody else that's causing you to feel these feelings, you can't eliminate it because you can't teach other people to do things your way. There's 8 billion people in the world. So by understanding that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, then you can actually fix it. Every single time you've been in an argument, every time you've been upset with somebody, it was your own mind causing it all along. And I'm sure you've been in arguments where you were adamantly trying to convince someone that what they were doing was causing you to be angry and they have to stop doing that thing, right? But that's not going to fix your problem because you can't teach 8 billion people to do things that way. right? So when you understand the cause is craving, desire, attachment, it's coming from your own mind, then you can move to the third noble truth, because the elimination of discontentedness is possible by eliminating craving, desire, attachment. If you eliminate the underlying cause, then you eliminate the effect, right? If you uproot the craving, desire, attachment, the longing, the yearning, wanting things to be permanent all the time, then you can eliminate the effect, that you won't experience discontentedness anymore. And you can independently verify that this is true. Because think back to that boyfriend or girlfriend when you guys first broke up and you were angry and frustrated, or you were lonely or missing this person, or you were bored. At some point your mind let go. And that's where your joy and your peace came back. You were like, you know what? If he wants to be with someone else, so be it. And your mind let go. And that's where your joy came back. Or you're like, you know what? If she wants to move to another part of the world, so be it. And you let go. And that's where your peace and your joy came back in, because your mind let go. But the mind doesn't know how to let go in the unenlightened state. And that's what the fourth noble truth is helping you to understand. That the path to eliminating discontentedness is the eightfold path. This is the complete perfect plan that's going to guide you in helping you to be able to eliminate all your cravings, desires, attachments, where your mind's not longing, yearning, and chasing after things. But sometimes when people hear that, they think, well, if I'm not doing that, then that means I'm going to be dull and lazy and lethargic. That's the other side, right? The unenlightened mind can usually see those two sides very well, that you're chasing. And if you're not doing that, you're going to swing all the way to the other side where you're dull and lethargic and lazy. But that's not what the Buddha is teaching you. He's teaching you the middle way, to come to the middle and gradually pursue things as a goal, objective, or interest, with ambition, with motivation, with encouragement. But your mind needs to know how to do this and learn how to do this, because right now you've been doing that with craving, desire, attachment. You've been chasing after things. And if you're not doing that, you'll swing to the other side. So the mind needs this training with the Eightfold Path to gradually come to the middle and pursue things as a goal, objective, or interest. Okay? So let me pause here and see what questions you guys have. Do you have any questions on the Four Noble Truths? Anything? No? Okay, let me see if we have anything online here. Okay, so what I just explained to you is right view. What right view is to have the right view that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. As long as you have wrong view, you're going to be blaming other people for the feelings that you're experiencing. And if you keep going around the world blaming other people for what you're experiencing, you'll never solve it. You'll just be angry for the rest of your life. You'll just keep pushing people away out of your life. You'll just keep being bitter, harsh, and hostile to them. Or you'll put your expectations on people and try to control them. And you can't live harmoniously with all beings this way, because it's only a matter of time before you encounter somebody who does things differently than you. So you need to do what's called establishing right view, where you establish firmly in your mind that you can see clearly with wisdom that you've independently verified that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. And since we today did the intellectual learning, the examination, we did the reflection to be able to help you independently verify it, now you need to practice right view. The way that you practice right view is now and forever, for the rest of your life. Whenever your mind is discontent, you look inward to try to figure out, what am I longing, yearning for here? What am I craving? What am I desiring? Because what your mind's going to want to do is going to look for someone else to blame. That's what it's going to do in the unenlightened state, is blame someone else for the feelings that you're experiencing. But what you would like to do is look inward and try to figure out, what am I longing, yearning for here? So you go to the airport and your flight's delayed by 2 hours and you start getting frustrated. Your mind's going to want to blame the airline company. They're going to want to blame the ticket agent. They're going to want to blame somebody else and be bitter and harsh and hostile with them. But you pull your mind back and you're like, no, hold on a second. My mind's craving for every plane to take off on time. And this isn't possible. Every plane's not going to take off on time. It's not possible because of impermanence. There's going to be weather issues, maintenance issues, crew issues. It's not possible for every plane to take off on time. What I'm experiencing here is impermanence. And if I crave permanence, I'm going to be frustrated or agitated or annoyed. Or let's just say you go back to your hotel and your bed is not made, and you get angry or frustrated about that, and you want to go down to the front desk and you want to yell at the front desk clerk and tell them how they've done such a terrible job because they didn't make your bed, right? The reason why you're angry there is you're craving for your bed to be made every single day. And maybe the hotel aspires to do that, and they do that mostly. But every once in a while, you're going to come back to your hotel and your bed's not going to be made because the people overlooked your room, or someone had to go home to take care of their child, or somebody couldn't get into your room. Maybe they lost the key, whatever it is. There's some impermanence somewhere, right? So if you crave permanence, when you come back to your hotel room and your bed's not made, you'll be frustrated or agitated or annoyed. So we could go example after example, but what you're going to need to do is establish right view, where you practice right view, where you start looking inward and you start trying to figure this out. What am I longing, yearning for? And when you have difficulties trying to find your cravings, desires, attachments, that's where you reach out to your teacher and you share, hey, David, here's what I'm experiencing. I'm having these issues and I can't see what am I craving here? Can you help me? And then that's when I start asking you questions to be able to help you uncover this and figure this out. So establishing right view is to understand that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, and to stop blaming other people for what it is that you're experiencing. Then once you establish right view, it's time to do some work, right? Because what right view helps you to do, the reason why it's first, is it helps you understand the problems in your own mind. And now you need to do this inner work. Because if you didn't understand that, why would you even come to the temple? Why would you even read a book? You're perfect. Everybody else is the problem, right? But the Buddha is helping you at the very beginning, his very first teaching, helping you to understand right view, that the real issue is within your own mind. And now you can build on that. That's the foundation. And now you can build on that to go to right intention. Here's the words of the Buddha. Each one of these aren't going to take me this amount of time to teach it to you. Here's the words of the Buddha on right intention. In what, monks, is right intention? The intention of renunciation, the intention of non-ill will, the intention of harmlessness. This, monks, is called right intention. So there's three things here: renunciation, non-ill will, and harmlessness. Some people translate this as right intention. Some people translate it as right thinking or right thought, because that's what you're doing here, is you're having these three things, building this intention in the mind, this thinking, this thought. The first one is renunciation, where you're willing to let go. Let go of your false ideas, your opinions, your beliefs, and your unwholesomeness. There are certain false opinions, views, and beliefs that you have in your mind right now that you're going to need to be willing to let go of. Like we were just talking about with the soul, right? You're going to need to be willing to let that go. Because as long as you hold on to those things, your mind's not going to be able to see true reality, because the mind's holding on to its own opinions and views. One of the first false beliefs that you need to let go of is that someone else is making you angry, that it's other people that are causing you to be frustrated or irritated or annoyed. As long as you hold on to that, you'll never get to enlightenment. So that's why the Buddha is teaching this is the second step, the second factor, the intention of renunciation. You need to be willing to let go. You need to have this open mind to bring in this wisdom, but you're not bringing in new beliefs in order to get rid of your old beliefs. That's not what you're doing. You're bringing in wisdom. And when you bring in wisdom and you see the truth and it conflicts with what you've believed your whole life, you need to be willing to let go of those beliefs. And now you've got the wisdom to know the truth, that it is your own mind that's causing these feelings, that you've gone all this time believing that it's other people that's causing them. So you get rid of that belief and now you bring in the wisdom. So you need to have an open mind where you're willing to bring in this wisdom. And there's also certain unwholesome things that you're doing on a day-to-day basis that you need to be willing to let go of. As long as you hold on to those unwholesome things, you're not going to be able to get to enlightenment. Then the second part, the intention of non-ill will. Whenever you see a double negative in English, it's a positive. So non-ill will is the same thing as goodwill. So you need to have the intention of goodwill. This is loving kindness, where you have a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. Active goodwill towards others without judgment, where you're not judging other people, but you just have this genuine interest in seeing them be well. Then you have the intention of harmlessness, where you're disinterested or incapable of causing harm to others. Because as long as you cause harm to others, harm is going to come back to you. So you like to get to the point where you're eliminating, with this intention of non-ill will, that you're eliminating your animosity, your bitterness, your anger, your hatred, your frustration, even the slightest dislike. When you dislike somebody, it's actually coming from your own mind. There are certain expectations that you have of people, and if they meet your expectations, you like them. But if they don't meet your expectations, you dislike them. This is the mind craving permanence. The mind thinks that the dislike is coming from the other person, but it's actually coming from your own mind because of your cravings, desires, attachments, your wants and expectations. The mind's craving permanence. I want everybody to be a certain way. And when they meet that, you like them. But when they don't meet that, you'll dislike them. So by having this intention of non-ill will, or this loving kindness, you can understand that you can just have love for everybody, where you just have a genuine interest in seeing everyone be well, and you understand that everybody's going to be different. That's okay. That's what makes the world interesting, is that everyone's different. And then you have this intention of harmlessness, where you're disinterested and incapable of causing harm to others. Okay, so now, just to summarize this, and then I'll open up to questions, is right view is the Four Noble Truths. And essentially what the Buddha is getting to there is accepting responsibility for your own feelings, your intentions, your speech, and your actions. Right? All too often, the unenlightened mind with this lack of wisdom is going to want to blame that on other people. You need to accept responsibility for all of that, and understanding that it's coming from your own mind. That's what the Four Noble Truths is helping you to learn, among other things, that it's craving, desire, attachment that's causing these feelings. But the underlying message there is that you need to accept responsibility for what's going on in your own mind. No one else is causing that. Then the second factor is right intention, practicing the intention of renunciation, where you're willing to let go, give up your false ideas, your false beliefs, your false opinions, and your unwholesomeness, keeping an open mind, letting go. The intention of non-ill will, or having the intention or the thinking or the thought of goodwill, and the intention of harmlessness, where you're disinterested or incapable of causing harm to others. So do you guys have any questions on this wisdom section of right view and right intention? No questions? Okay, I don't see any questions online either. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a break here. It's 10:40. Let's take a break up to 11 o'clock, give you guys 20 minutes. And then when we come back, I'm going to move into the rest of this, which is starting off with the moral conduct section. I'll explain to you guys all the other factors, and you'll see how this all works together to help you get to enlightenment. So enjoy your break, and I'll see you guys at 11. Okay? All right. All right. Okay, I'm going to get restarted here, moving on through the Eightfold Path, continuing our journey here to learn this particular teaching. Before break, we were learning about the wisdom section of right view and right intention. This is the foundation that you're now building on. And now the Buddha is going to teach you about moral conduct, because once you understand that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, you realize all that harshness and bitterness and hostility that you're putting out, it's actually really unwise. Because anytime you're putting out bitterness and harshness and hostility, you're causing harm in the world, and now it's just all going to come back to you. That's why you can see your relationships, that where you're having bitterness, harshness, and hostility towards others, it just comes back to you. So you need to be able to transform your mind so that you can transform your life and transform your relationships. So the Buddha is going to teach you how to make wise decisions around your speech, your actions, and your livelihood to eliminate craving, desire, attachment. That's what he's going to be teaching you. So whenever you see anything from the Buddha about moral conduct, what he's teaching you is the natural law of karma, of cause and effect, or action and result. The natural law of karma, or some people call it karma, that's the Sanskrit version. The original teachings of the Buddha are in the Pali language, so people who study those will use the word karma. What this is cause and effect, or action and result. It's the results of your decisions. The Buddha doesn't teach rules and commandments or anything like that. He's helping you to be able to awaken to this natural law where you can see cause and effect. And there are certain things with your speech, your actions, and your livelihood that if you make unwise decisions related to this, it's going to produce unwholesome results or unwholesome karma. But when you gain the wisdom of right speech, right action, and right livelihood, now you can make wise decisions that's going to produce wholesome results or wholesome karma for you. So that's what he's teaching you, is this cause and effect, or this action and result, the results of your decisions. Because it's your life, it's your decisions, and it's your results. And you would like to be able to produce as much wholesome results as you can. But as long as you're out there with the lack of wisdom of this natural law, you'll think you're doing all the best things in the world, but then you'll have difficulties and struggles. So once you study right speech, right action, and right livelihood, you start functioning through this more and more, you won't be causing harm in the world through your moral conduct. And that's where you'll see your relationships will really blossom, because you're not causing harm any longer. So I'm going to walk you guys through this and helping you to understand the natural law of karma. So here's right speech and what the Buddha describes. And you might even think of this as wise speech. That's what he's teaching you, is the wisdom behind how to speak wisely. He says, in what, monks, is right speech? Refraining from lying, refraining from slander, refraining from harsh speech, refraining from frivolous speech. This is called right speech. So these are 4 things that are all based in craving, desire, attachment. So if you eliminate these, you'll be eliminating craving, desire, attachment, because that's what's causing the discontentedness. So for example, lying. Whenever we lie, it produces unwholesome results, because people are going to discover those lies. Your personal and professional relationships are going to struggle. And if you've ever done a lot of lying, you know that your mind was having to obsessively figure out, what did you say to one person versus another, and you have to keep all your lies straight. And that's very challenging for the mind to be able to do. And you're not going to be able to get to peace and joy as long as you're lying. What the mind's doing here is it has a craving. It has a desire. It wants something to be a certain way. And it thinks that if it tells the truth, it's not going to get what it wants. So it lies because it has some want or some expectation, some longing or yearning. And as soon as you do that, that's where you're going to produce unwholesome results for you, because people are going to discover those lies. So refraining from lying is going to produce the very best results in your life, so you can speak the truth. Then there's slander. The mind will oftentimes have gossip or slander, where an individual is trying to degrade or diminish other people. And here what the mind has is it has a craving to look good in front of other people. The mind thinks, if I can degrade and diminish this person, then I can look better. Right? It's kind of like going into a dark room and everybody has a candle, and the mind thinks, well, if I put out everybody else's candle, my candle will shine brighter. But no, we're in a dark room. We need everybody's candle to shine bright, right? We don't need to extinguish other people's candles, right? So if you go around degrading and diminishing people, you can experience at the height of this being murdered, right? If you destroy people's reputation through gossip and slander, even if it's true, right? You can experience being murdered. That's where investigative reporters will oftentimes get on the news, and they will, be gossiping and slandering, essentially, was what they're doing. And now they end up murdered. Remember, the Buddha's teachings aren't teaching you the way the world should be. They're teaching you the way the world is. And the way the world is if you go out in the world and you gossip and slander people, you're harming their reputation. And now those people are going to want to harm you. You can get beat up, you can get murdered, but at the very least, people are going to be gossiping and slandering about you. Because whoever it is that you're gossiping and slandering with, when your back is turned, they're going to be gossiping and slandering about you. Because you got these people used to gossiping and slandering. They're not going to stop just because you left, right? And they're not only going to gossip about the people you want to gossip about, they're going to gossip and slander you too, right? So if you don't like it when people gossip and slander about you, then you would like to eliminate that, because there's a craving there that your mind has. You need to eliminate that craving. Then there's refraining from harsh speech. Harsh speech is your tone, your tempo, and your word choice. Whenever you're using harsh speech, there's an underlying craving there, that your mind's wanting something. And the mind thinks that if I can just be bitter and harsh and hostile to this person, it's like scaring them or fearing them into doing things your way. So you're going to need to pay attention to your tone, your tempo, and your word choice, because in relationships where you have craving, desire, attachment, you're going to have harsh speech. Right? And you're going to need to restrain your mind from that. So by refraining from harsh speech and learning how to speak gentle with your tone, your tempo, and your word choice, this is going to improve your relationships. Then there's something called frivolous speech. Some people call this idle chatter. This is unpurposeful, unbeneficial speech. If you or somebody you know has ever been like yada 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 yada, this isn't really a conversation. This is like broadcasting, right? Somebody's just talking and talking and talking and talking. You'll just sit there for 15 or 20 minutes and they're just talking the whole time. It's not even a conversation, right? It's broadcasting, right? So if you did that, there's a craving there. There's a longing, yearning to just talk. And that's all you're doing. And over time, people aren't going to be interested in talking with you. You're not going to be very influential. People are going to just tune you out. They're going to be disinterested in talking with you. So you would like to work on these 4, where you're eliminating lying, slander, harsh speech, and frivolous speech, because that's going to eliminate your cravings, desires, attachments around your speech. Once you are getting that really well ironed out, then you'd like to go deeper. There's other teachings that integrate into the Eightfold Path, and this is one of them around speech. It's called the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. That you speak at the proper time, what you say is true, gentle, beneficial, and with a mind of loving kindness. Now, what speaking at the proper time means is that you're not interrupting people. Right? You don't like it when people interrupt you. So if you went around interrupting people, this is going to produce unwholesome results for you. And what's happening there is the mind has a craving. You really want to talk. You really want to jump in there, and you can't wait your turn, right? The mind's impatient because it has craving, right? So what the Eightfold Path is doing for you is helping you eliminate your cravings. So if you learn how to speak at the proper time, that you're not interrupting people, this is going to help you to eliminate your cravings. Then the other part of this is making sure that it's the proper time for your mind to speak. If you're angry, if you're frustrated, if you're agitated or annoyed, that's not the proper time to speak, because the only thing that's going to come out of your mouth is anger and hostility and bitterness, and it's going to damage your relationships. And then the third aspect of speaking in the proper time is making sure it's the proper time for the other person. If they're angry and frustrated and agitated, it's not the proper time to talk, because you're not going to be able to have a decent conversation with this person. Even if your mind's calm, their mind's not, it's not going to be a good, proper time for you to speak. So you like to speak at the proper time. Then there's speaking the truth, which we've already talked about up here, right? So we don't need to talk about that again. You'd always like to be a truth speaker, dependable, reliable, one that people see as a truth speaker, right? Then there's speaking gently. We talked about that up here, right? You need to pay attention to your tone, your tempo, and your word choice in every single language, because some of you guys speak other languages besides English, right? Like in the Thai language, it's very clear how to speak with gentle speech. That's what you see with Thai people, right? They speak very gentle. They have all these words to show that you're being polite and respectful, right? But you're going to need to look at your languages, whichever languages you speak, and figure out how to speak gentle. And even though other people maybe don't speak that way, you're going to need to learn how to speak that way. So like in the English language, at one time we used to say please and thank you and yes sir, yes ma'am, no sir, no ma'am, things like this. So you can kind of revitalize that in your life and speak that way, and people can see that you're being polite and respectful and gentle. You're going to need to pay attention to your tone, your tempo, and your word choice, right? That's what's going to help you to practice gentle speech. Then there's beneficial. Speaking beneficially is the method that you speak, that you're clear, concise, and precise in the way that you speak, that you're purposeful in the way that you speak. Whereas if you're just yada, 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 it's not beneficial. So it's not like there's a approved list of topics to speak about. That's not what it is. It's more about the method that you speak, because you would like to be influential and helpful in the communities that you spend time in and the different people that you spend time with. And if you speak beneficially, then people will be more and more interested in listening to what it is that you have to say. Then you wrap all of this in a mind of loving kindness. If you speak with a mind of loving kindness, then that's going to emanate through your speech, right? Whereas if you do the opposite, which is to speak with a mind of inner hate, that's going to come out and it's going to produce unwholesome results for you. So what we're talking about here is something in the Thai language. They say that there's certain people in the community that have barami. This is a Thai word, that you're establishing barami when you speak this way. What barami means is the one who people listen to. If you speak wisely, you will be the one who people listen to. You will have barami. So each village in Thailand, there's usually elders in the village that everybody knows that these people are very successful. And if you need help, you can go talk to them and they will help you. And when I say successful, I don't mean monetarily successful. I mean that they have successful relationships. That's what it means to be successful. Anybody can go out in the world and make money, right? But to have harmonious relationships, that takes real wisdom, right? So to be successful, you need to have harmonious relationships. So the elders in the village that everybody knows to go to help, to get help from, they have barami. They're the ones who people listen to. So you can actually establish barami. You can be the one who people listen to, where people are interested in coming to you and getting help, or maybe you're influential both personally and professionally. It's going to take time for you to build that up over multiple years, but you do that through practicing the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. And the more you practice these, you're not causing harm to other people. Your relationships will blossom and you'll develop barami. Okay? So remember, you're not interested in believing any of this stuff. You need to independently verify it. So this was the intellectual learning. Now start independently verifying it. Walk through the 5 factors of well-spoken speech and look at conversations that haven't gone well for you, where you had difficulties and struggles in that conversation. You can see that you and or the other person wasn't practicing one of these 5 factors, or maybe 2 or 3 or 4 of them, right? Were you speaking at the proper time? Was your mind calm and peaceful? Were you interrupting? Was the other person's mind calm? Were you speaking the truth? Were you speaking gentle? Were you speaking beneficially? And were you speaking with a mind of loving kindness? If you missed even one of these factors, there's the potential that the conversation didn't go well. Because remember, these are natural laws. It's not just Thailand that these apply to. It's everywhere in the world. It's the natural laws, right? And just like you can look at this side where your conversations didn't go well, you can verify this on the other side too. Because you've had plenty of conversations that have gone well, right? That they actually had wholesome results. And you can see that you were practicing all the 5 factors. In fact, at our break, you guys were probably practicing the 5 factors of well-spoken speech without maybe even realizing it, that you were practicing the 5 factors. Because you've had plenty of conversations that have gone well, and that's because you were practicing the 5 factors, and you didn't even know that. So now what you do is consciously practice them, right? You're going to find it to be the most challenging in the relationships where you're really close with people. Your parents, your siblings, your life partner, your children. Those are the conversations that you're going to have the most challenge in practicing the 5 factors of well-spoken speech, because you have the strongest attachment in those relationships. That's why, right? You'll think that it's the other person that's the problem, but it's actually your own attachment that's causing that, because you're holding on, you're wanting this person to be a certain way. So this is going to help you in those relationships, that you can really improve the way you interact in those relationships. So here, the Buddha refers to this as right speech, because that's the only thing that was happening during the lifetime of the Buddha was speech. But we have much more than speech. We might think about this as right communication, right? Because we have emails, text messages, voice messages, social media posts, and all these other things. So you might think about it as right communication. Because if you went over to your keyboard and you were pounding away on the keyboard with all this anger and hostility in your mind, that's not the proper time to communicate, right? Instead of hitting send, hit save. Right? Come back a few hours later after you've calmed down and look at that email and decide if you really should send that email or not. Because if you press send, you're putting out that hostility into the world. It's just going to come back to you. So you might think of this as right communication. If you went to a job interview and you were speaking and you knocked it out of the park, and these people are like, man, I would like to hire this person. They are so professional. Wow, they're amazing. But they got on your social media and they saw that you're bitter and harsh and hostile on your social media, you're probably not going to get the job. And a lot of places do that nowadays, right? So you would like all your communication, no matter where it is, to be using the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. And that's what's going to produce the beneficial results, the wholesome results in your day-to-day life, essentially establishing parami, the one who people listen to. Okay? As you're learning all of this, you might actually have kind of a period of time where it's difficult for you to remember what the 5 factors of well-spoken speech are, right? Because if you're in a conversation with your boss or your mom, you can be like, hey mom, hold on, let me go get the book. I need to talk to you for a second. I need to go check my book, right? You can't do that. So as you're learning the 5 factors of well-spoken speech and you're bringing them up in your mind more and more, if you're having difficulties remembering them, if you can at least remember this: speak polite, kind, friendly, and respectful. Right? You're going to need the 5 factors of well-spoken speech and what I just taught you. That's what you're going to need to get to enlightenment. But also in your process of getting there, if you can remember to speak polite, kind, friendly, and respectful, that would help you, right? In those tough situations where you can't remember what the 5 factors of well-spoken speech are. But more and more, you would like to commit those to memory. One of the things that I used to do is I used to look at the 5 factors of well-spoken speech in the morning, and then I would go through my morning and have my meetings and my conversations. And then at lunchtime, I would look at the 5 factors again, and I would look over my morning and I'd be like, I'm not doing well with speaking at the proper time. I was interrupting a lot of people. I need to really work on that, right? Or maybe I wasn't speaking gentle in this conversation over here. So then the rest of the day, I would now really focus on those particular factors. And then maybe at the end of the day, I would look at them again, right? So this is the way you can remember them and bring them into your life more and more, is really put it under a microscope and practice it. When you look in the book in chapter 5, because that's what we're talking about, chapter 4 and 5, I detail each one of these factors, the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. I describe it in detail, giving you examples and things like that. So if you get a version of this book, either online or through the printed version, you'll have that content available for you to be able to remember what each one of these factors are. Okay? Then we have right action. Here's what the Buddha says about right action. In what, monks, is right action? Refraining from taking life, refraining from taking what is not given, refraining from sexual misconduct. This is called right action. So he's giving you 3 things here that are really impactful and that are going to produce unwholesome results for you if you didn't do this. So he's teaching you to refrain from killing, refrain from taking what is not given, and refrain from sexual misconduct. He's teaching you to not cause harm through your bodily actions. And he's giving you 3 really big, impactful ones. But he's not giving you an exhaustive list. There's other ones too, right? Notice he doesn't say, don't walk through an airplane and run over people's feet with your suitcase and bump into their knees, right? He doesn't say that because The airplanes didn't exist during the lifetime of the Buddha. But if you understand this factor, then you understand how to practice it. Notice he doesn't say, don't walk up to someone and punch them in the face. Well, if you walked up to someone and punched them in the face, they're going to punch you back, or they're going to get out a knife or a gun, or their friends or their family is going to come attack you, right? That's the unwholesome results of your causing harm with your bodily actions. So you would like to refrain from causing harm with your bodily actions. He's just giving you 3 really big, impactful ones here, but he's going to give you more details on this when we study the 5 precepts tomorrow, because right here you can see these are very general and these are very broad. Someone might say, well, what is sexual misconduct? What is that? Well, you're going to see in the 5 precepts that he describes that. And just to give you a heads up, he's teaching you things that are causing harm, like having sex outside of committed relationships, having sex with minors, raping people, having sex without consent, things like this. It's important to understand that he never talks about same-gender relationships as causing harm. He was aware of same-gender relationships because they existed during his lifetime. There's nothing new about same-gender relationships, because ever since the beginning of time, there's never been a time where everybody had sex with the opposite gender. And the way that I know that is because of the universal truth of impermanence, right? If everybody had sex with the opposite gender, that would be permanence. And we don't live in that world. We live in an impermanent world. Some people are going to be interested in having sex with the opposite gender. Some people are going to be interested in having sex with the same gender. So ever since the beginning of humanity, it's been that way. And you can see it in the teachings of the Buddha because he talks about it. But he doesn't give any teachings. He just observes that that's what's occurring, and that's it. So when he talks about sexual misconduct, he doesn't include same-gender relationships because there isn't any harm. If there's 2 loyal, loving, consenting adults choosing to have sex, they're not causing any harm to anybody. So if you have same-gender relationships, or people that do, you're not causing any harm to anybody. Now, other people might get angry, right? Because they're having craving for you to have sex with someone of the opposite gender, but they're causing their own anger. That's not you causing that, right? So when we get to tomorrow, we're going to expand all of these, and you're going to see it in more detail with the words of the Buddha, what he's talking about here. So I just give you a heads up on this one. He's not giving you an exhaustive list. He's giving you the really impactful ones, right? He's not saying, when you're sitting at the temple, don't poke the person in the eyes next to you because that's going to cause harm and they're probably going to slap you, right? He doesn't say that because you can figure that out for yourself if you understand this factor. So he can't give you an exhaustive list. It's impossible. Okay? And he does teach other things like substances that cause heedlessness. He talks about gambling. He talks about some things, but he doesn't give you an exhaustive list. Okay? Then we have right livelihood. He says, in what, monks, is right livelihood? Here, monks, the noble disciple, having given up wrong livelihood, keeps himself by right livelihood. So here he just says something very general and very broad because his teachings on right livelihood show up in other parts. It integrates into the Eightfold Path. First, what a livelihood is how you choose to sustain your life. If you choose to sustain your life off of causing harm to others, harm is going to come back to you. So he teaches 2 levels of purification for right livelihood. I'm going to teach you the first fold of purification today. Here in these words here, this is one part of that. He explains to you that it would be unwise to have business in weapons, living beings, meat, substances that cause heedlessness, and poisons, because those are going to cause harm to others. And if you're sustaining your life off of causing harm to others, then harm is going to come to you. But remember, you're not believing anything here, right? This isn't rules or commandments. He's teaching you the natural law of karma, of cause and effect. So what you do is you take each one of these and you independently verify it for yourself. So I'll just take one of them and show you how to do this, okay? So let's just say I was having business in substances that cause heedlessness, okay? Let's say I was standing on the street corner selling illicit drugs into the community. I'm selling heroin, crystal methamphetamine, cocaine, and things like this. I'm causing harm to the community because those people are getting addicted to these substances and they're going out and robbing in order to bring me money. They're going out and selling their body in order to bring me money, right? I'm causing harm in the community. They're stealing, things like this, right? Well, now standing on the street corner, I can very easily get murdered. right? I can get beat up. I can get robbed. I can get addicted to these substances myself, or I can get arrested. This is all the unwholesome results of me choosing to cause harm in the community. But this is the natural law that we're talking about. We're not talking about the human laws, because most places in the world, it's illegal to sell illicit drugs. But there's some places in the world, it's not illegal to sell heroin. It's not illegal to sell crystal methamphetamine. So we're not talking about the human laws, because the human laws are imperfect, right? The government maybe doesn't arrest you for selling the heroin and the crystal methamphetamine and things like this, but you're still going to experience harm. So for example, if I worked in my home country as a cashier at a liquor store, the government's not going to arrest me for that, right? Because that's the human law. But what you come to understand with the natural law of karma, that's unwise for you to do, because it's the liquor store where people come and they rob you, right? They're going to hold you up. They're going to rob you. They're going to beat you up. They might even murder you in that situation. At the very least, you're going to need to deal with intoxicated people coming in as customers, right? And now, how can you get to a peaceful and joyful mind and a peaceful and joyful life if you're regularly having to deal with intoxicated people at your livelihood? So these 5 livelihoods, you can independently verify that the Buddha is teaching you the truth here. And if you're going to have a livelihood to sustain your life, you would like to be sure that you're not practicing any of these 5. And you'll need to look at your livelihood to see if that's the case. Okay. Then he teaches you how to perform your livelihood, because he's helping you to be able to get to a point where you have enthusiasm and ambition and you're very successful in your livelihood. He teaches you to eliminate scheming, flattering, hinting, belittling, and pursuing gain with gain. What scheming is corruption. So let's just say I was a politician. Right? There's no harm in being a politician. Say I'm the mayor of a town, or I'm a lawmaker. There's no harm in that. But if I was corrupt, right, I'm going to have a lot of difficulties. 10, 15 years into my tenure as a politician, people find out what I'm doing. They're not going to reelect me. And now my career is damaged because I was scheming and I was corrupt. What flattery is where you give insincere comments just to get people to buy things from you. And if you do that, people are going to see that, and they're not going to be interested in buying things from you. Have you ever gone to a store where you walk in and they're like, oh my goodness, that shirt looks so beautiful on you. Wow, I've got these earrings that'll go really well with that shirt. Come over here. Let me show you that. You look so beautiful in that shirt. Let me show you these earrings, right? They're just trying to flatter you in order to get you to buy these earrings. If you've ever experienced that, you were probably like, I'm not even interested in going into this store. So if you're just flattering people, giving them insincere comments in order to buy things from you, you're not going to be successful in your livelihood. Then the Buddha teaches you about hinting. What hinting is if you weren't clear and concise in your work. Let's just say all of us are on a project team and we're all working together and we need to go in and brief the boss about what we're doing. We'd like to be clear and concise and precise about what it is that we're doing so that the boss can understand what it is that we need to do and what we are doing and what we've accomplished. We like to be clear and concise. That's what's going to produce the most benefits and results in our livelihood. Then there's belittling. What belittling is like being degrading and diminishing to your customers, to your coworkers, to your business partners, or even your competition. Sometimes people think that the way to be successful in business is degrade and diminish your competition. Right? But you don't need to do that. If you do that, your customers are going to know that, and they're going to be disinterested in doing business with you because they see you degrading and diminishing people. So if you aren't having something nice to say, then just don't say anything at all. Somebody says, hey, what does your competition do? You're like, I'm not really sure what they actually do, but this is what I can do for you. And then you just focus on that. You don't need to degrade and diminish other people because that's not going to produce beneficial results for you. So you'd like to eliminate belittling your coworkers, your customers, your business partners, and your competition in your livelihood, that you don't belittle other people. And then the last one here is pursuing gain with gain. What this means is that you were just accepting a job for the money, or you were just doing a certain work for the money, and that's all you care about, right? If you took a job where all you cared about is the money, you don't really care about the product or service, you at the beginning will probably really enjoy going to that job. You'll have a really good time because you're showing up and you're getting all this money. But over time, that craving is going to burn out, and then you're going to feel unmotivated going to this job. You're going to be dragging yourself to work each day. You're not going to be very enthusiastic. And that's what the Buddha is teaching you to do, is to have ambition and enthusiasm in your work. You don't need to hate your work. Sometimes people hate the work that they do. They really don't like going to work. Well, how can you get to a peaceful and joyful mind and a peaceful and joyful life if you hate and you don't like the place where you go to work each day? So the Buddha is teaching you how to have ambition and enthusiasm and motivation in the work that you do. And if you're just showing up for the paycheck and that's all you care about, you're not going to have that ambition and enthusiasm long term. So you need to get to the point where you thoroughly enjoy the work that you're doing, that the paycheck is almost secondary, that you enjoy this work so much that you would even do it if you didn't get paid. That's how much you enjoy it. Of course, you need to get paid because you need to sustain your life, but that's not the priority. You actually thoroughly enjoy the work that you're doing. You'll see this here on display in Thailand. You might go to a market, and on the corner, there's some lady that's serving mango and sticky rice. And she's got the biggest smile on her face, right? And she went out this morning into her mango grove. She picked her mangoes out of the mango grove. She cleaned them all off. She put them in her little basket. She made her little sticky rice and her coconut milk. And she came to the market, and she's standing there slicing up the mangoes with a big old smile on her face. And she's putting that on top of the sticky rice and pouring the coconut milk on top of the mango, and she's serving it to you with a big old smile, and she collects her 40 baht, and she can't imagine doing anything else other than serving you mango and sticky rice. So you need to find your mango and sticky rice. What's your mango and sticky rice? And if you're not in that job right now, then you can change, right? It's impermanent. You can make different decisions. So this is the first fold of purification, to be able to help you get to the point where you're have enthusiasm and ambition and motivation in the work that you're doing. But then there's a second level of purification that the Buddha teaches, and I have that in volume 12, chapter 14. So if you're in between jobs, or you don't like the job that you're doing right now, you can look in volume 12, chapter 14, and there's more teachings there for you beyond just what I've shared with you here, to be able to help you, to be able to find that livelihood that you can move to, where you can have enthusiasm and ambition in the work that you do, because you're not interested in dragging yourself to work each day. You'll never get to peace and joy that way. So this is right livelihood. Okay. So just to summarize that, is we have right speech, or we might think of this as right communication, where all your verbal conduct, as well as your text, your chat, your post, your emails, all of this is harmless, where you're practicing refraining from lying, slander, harsh speech, and frivolous speech. And then you practice the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. Speak at the proper time. What you say is true, gentle, beneficial, and with a mind of loving kindness. Then you like to practice right action, where you're not causing any harm through your bodily actions. The Buddha gives you 3 just to get started: refraining from killing, stealing, and sexual misconduct. But then you need to apply that to all areas of your life and make sure you're not causing harm through your bodily actions. Then there's right livelihood, making sure that you're not having business in weapons, living beings, meat, substances that cause heedlessness, and poisons. But then you'd like to eliminate scheming, flattering, hinting, belittling, and pursuing gain with gain. And now you're practicing right livelihood. And it's going to take you time to tweak all of that. That's why you can't snap your fingers and get to enlightenment. That's why it's not instantaneous to get to enlightenment. It's this gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. So this is the moral conduct that's going to ensure that you're not causing harm through your moral conduct. So therefore, less and less harm is coming back to you. Once the Buddha would teach his brand new students right view, he would then teach them the moral conduct. Because one of the ways you might think about this is like an oil pipe has busted. And if the oil pipe is busted, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to shut down the oil pipe, right? You're going to fix that leak. You're not going to go clean up the oil on the floor. You're going to fix the oil pipe. So one of the ways you might think about it as an unenlightened being is there's a certain amount of oil that you're spewing over the world. right? Your moral conduct, there are certain unwise decisions that you're making, and you're practicing a certain amount of unwholesome moral conduct with the people around you. And you'd like to shut that down as soon as possible and gradually train your mind to eliminate that. Because as long as you're putting out unwholesome and unwise moral conduct, it's all just going to come back to you. It's just more that you have to deal with. It's more that you have to clean up. So you'd like to shut down this unwise moral conduct. So any questions on the moral conduct? Yep.
I want to ask, how do we get around the little white lies, as they say? You know, because some lies are very harmful and you understand that you shouldn't do that. Mm-hmm. But then I feel like we are living in this society where it's really hard to be like 100% honest all the time, because sometimes it's working against you. Like, let's say your boss asks you, you know, what do you think about this? And you really love your job and you love everything, but maybe this boss is not ready to hear the disagreement. Mm-hmm. So sometimes you say like, yes, everything is good. Or like your CV, sometimes you make it better because you know you are up against like 100 different people. And I feel like even this is not helping you because you're not being authentic. But at the same time, I think it's really hard. And I would like to know what is the right way. How should I formulate the truth for other people?
Yeah, you would like to always tell the truth. There's no such thing as a harmless lie. Every lie you tell is going to produce harm. So like embellishing your CV or your resume, when the employers find out about that, it's going to damage your career. It's going to hurt you in that profession. If you're not speaking the truth to your boss, that's because you have certain cravings and you're unwilling to tell the boss the truth. You would like to be able to speak the truth in all situations. And speaking the truth doesn't mean you say everything you know. Right? Sometimes people ask me like, what would I do during, Nazi Germany if a Jewish person ran into my house and there was a Nazi soldier that came to the door and said, where is Barbara? Am I supposed to say, oh, she's under my bed hiding? No, that's not what you need to do. So telling the truth doesn't mean you tell everything you know. So if that happened to me, what I would say is, oh, you're looking for Barbara? How about we look under the bush, or let's look at the bush outside. Come on, I'll help you. Right? I would go over there. I wouldn't say, I don't know where Barbara is, because that would be a lie. I would say, oh, you're looking for Barbara? Well, I'll help you if you like. Let's go look over by the bush. Maybe she's hiding behind the bush. Right? So I haven't lied here. Right? I'm just not telling everything that I know. The Buddha teaches that if you're in a court of law, that you should tell the truth and tell everything you know. But telling the truth doesn't mean you tell everything you know. Here's another example people usually give on this one. They say, what do I do if my wife comes out? We're going out for an evening and she's wearing this new dress and she says, hey, honey, how do I look? What am I supposed to say? Right? And what I teach people is I say, well, what your wife is looking for there, she's looking for confidence. Obviously, she liked the dress, or she wouldn't have purchased it, or she wouldn't have received it as a gift, whatever. She's got this clothing on and she's looking for confidence. So what I would say if I was you is, you know what, honey, it doesn't matter what you wear. I enjoy spending time with you. Let's go out and have a great time. Right? You don't need to say, oh, you look horrible. That color doesn't look good on you, right? Because that's just your preference. That's your craving, perhaps. So no need to communicate that. Instead, just say, oh, honey, it doesn't matter what you wear. I enjoy spending time with you no matter what you wear. Let's go have a good time, right? Now you go outside and have a good time, right? So telling the truth doesn't mean you tell everything you know, but in those examples that you shared, there's deliberate lies there that are going to cause you harm. There's no way to get around that. So when you do a CV, you would like to be accurately representing what it is that you've done in your career and in your profession, and not lying there. And I can't remember the other example that you gave.
Yeah, it was like, just if, let's say, your boss asks you about opinion and you don't really like.
So if the mind is craving and holding on to this money and being perceived by the boss a certain way, and you're afraid to hurt their feelings, but if you understand that you're not hurting their feelings, any feelings they have, they're creating it themselves, there's ways for you to professionally share what you think. Like if you would like to give constructive feedback about what's going on at work, there's ways for you to do that, and doing it in a constructive way where this person can receive your feedback well. That's part of the wisdom that you need to cultivate, is how to give constructive feedback in a situation like that where a boss is asking for your opinions. And if you work for a boss who asks for your opinions, and then when you share them, they get angry and frustrated, then you probably should find another job, because that's not a very healthy relationship to be able to have. You'd like to have a boss that's open to your opinions and views and sees that as beneficial for you to be able to share that, even if they disagree with your opinions and views.
Okay, thank you. I understand. I think definitely I understand how the speech slots in now, that there is a way to execute it. And just one more question, because you mentioned something at the gossip section about the reporter, like broadcasting about like something, that happened, and then they get harmed as a result. So, but what if this person is like exposing something, that is very important, and it will hurt some people, but it will also help many people. So the way you phrased it, it sounded almost like we shouldn't actually, say that. We shouldn't make that action of like talking gossip, even if it's true.
Yeah.
But
anytime you gossip and slander, it's damaging someone's reputation. And that's causing harm, and that harm's going to come back to you. Whether you choose to do that or not is a choice for you to make. I don't tell people what they should or shouldn't do. I just help you to see the natural law, and then you get to make the decision for you. What I've seen that some news reporters do here in Thailand is, if they're publishing a news article where they're exposing something that's going on, they don't put a name on it. It just has the information, and they'll say, staff writer. That's all they'll say. But even that, the newspaper itself is gossiping and slandering, and now the newspaper itself can come under scrutiny and can have difficulties with that. So there's no situation where I would gossip and slander anybody. If I've had a certain situation with a certain business or a certain individual, I don't need to go out and tell a bunch of other people about that. That was my experience with that business, that it didn't go so well, and I know that I'm not going to go back to that business again. And if somebody asked me, hey David, what do you think of that hotel that you were at? I was like, we had a good time. I probably won't go back to the hotel. And if they're like, why? And I was like, just my own reasons, but I wouldn't recommend it. I wouldn't go back. I don't need to go into all the ins and outs and details about it. So, this is where you can learn grandma's teaching. Grandma it's not from the Buddha, but it matches with the Buddha's teachings really well. Grandma used to say, if you don't have anything good to say, don't say anything at all. You probably heard that maybe from your grandmother too, or your grandfather or somebody. But you'd like to practice that. That's going to be helpful for you, because going out there and telling everybody all the bad experiences you've had, essentially a lot of what's going on in that situation is somebody has cravings, somebody has expectations, and this business didn't meet their expectations, and now they have painful feelings because of it. They're angry, and now their ill will comes up, and they want to damage this business because they didn't get the experience that they wanted and that they expected. That's what a lot of this is. So you would like to get to the point where you don't feel like you have to go out and tell everybody all the bad experiences that you've had, that each individual person is going to have their own experience, and then they make their own decision. Because the gamma of that business, even though we're talking about reporters, the gamma of that business is that if people are regularly having results that are not favorable, then the word is not going to spread that this business is going to be successful, that people aren't going to share with other people how great this business is, and less this business isn't going to get customers, and they're going to go out of business. So the natural law of karma will take care of this, that you don't have to go out and have ill will and use gossip and slander. That would be my recommendation for you, but what you choose to do is up to you. But you'll see, if you gossip and slander people, it's going to come back to you.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's going to take a little bit more time because this is, I think about my definition, what is gossip? And there are still some things that I struggle with even after this explanation because, you have these like very big cases that comes up and somebody discovers another like Epstein and like, these times where the person feels like to speak is what they should do, but you can classify it as a gossip because it is your truth, right? So I think I need more time to...
Yeah, you can look at examples around the world. I think you mentioned the name Epstein. Is that what you mentioned? So, I'm not saying what's right or wrong for an individual. I'm sharing with you the natural law of karma, right? But you can see one of the people who came out and talked the most about that situation, they ended up killing themselves. I don't know if you're familiar with that example, right? This is the natural law of karma, right? This is what happened. It's not punishments and rewards. It's a cause and effect thing that's happening. It's a sequence of events that occurs. And if you go out in the world and you gossip and slander, you're damaging people's reputation, and now harm's going to come back to you as a result. And you just need to look around the world and see enough examples of this that it's occurring. Even like if you did like 1-star reviews and 2-star reviews on Google, you're gossiping and slandering about people, you're going to see that it's going to come back to you. It's going to affect you. So I don't give 1-star reviews and 2-star reviews. I only give 5-star reviews. If it didn't meet a 5-star review, then I don't put any review at all. And what I'll do sometimes is we went to a hotel, I think it was last year or maybe it was this year. My son and I went to a hotel and the hotel was amazing, but their food could have been better. And if they had better food, that place would have been, wildly amazing. So what I did is I gave them a 5-star review and I said, wow, this was a great hotel. We had an excellent experience. The customer service was outstanding, da, 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 da. And I said, a suggestion would be to look at potentially improving the food. And that's all I said in terms of that, right? I didn't say, oh, it was horrible. I'd never eat there again. It was a waste of money. I wouldn't say something like that. That's unwise to talk in that way. But I gave them positive and constructive feedback. And I was using the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. And then as a result, the management actually replied to me. And they said, oh, thank you so much for your feedback. We appreciate your kind words. Right. So I was giving them a constructive, positive, uplifting review because everything in the hotel was outstanding. But that was the one area that they could have improved. And they appreciated that feedback because I gave it to them in a positive way with a mind of loving kindness. Right. So you just need to look at enough examples of this in your own life, but also you can see on the news too. Gentleman has a question.
Hello. I have a question about idle chatter. So when I think of idle chatter, my sort of mental image of it is a person is blathering away about something to somebody who clearly has no interest in what that person is saying. An example of idle chatter would not be, 2 friends talking about last night's football game because they're both interested, they're having an enjoyable conversation, but a person who's not interested in football would just find that idle chatter.
Yeah, the way that I think about idle chatter, it's like broadcasting. There's not a real conversation, it's just broadcasting. So like if we got together and we met for the first time and I was like, hey, how you doing? What's your name? Where are you from? There's a real conversation there. What do you like doing? That's not idle chatter because there's a purpose there. There's benefit. We're getting to know each other. So it's more about just blah, 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 blah. It's just broadcasting. There's an underlying craving to just talk and there's no real conversation that's happening. Yep. Okay, so now we're going to move into the next part, which is the mental discipline. Because now that we've built up the wisdom and the moral conduct, now we're going to move into the mental discipline. And all these factors are actually working together. You wouldn't actually be able to practice the moral conduct without the wisdom. If you don't understand the wisdom that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, you would never improve your moral conduct. But you're not going to be able to improve your moral conduct without the mental discipline. So you're going to need the mental discipline in order to improve the moral conduct, right? So I'm going to help you to understand this. So here's the words of the Buddha on right effort. He says, "In what, monks, is right effort? Here, monks, a monk rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to prevent the arising of unarisen, evil, unwholesome mental states. He rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to overcome evil, unwholesome mental states that have arisen. He rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to produce unarisen, wholesome mental states. He rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to maintain wholesome mental states that have arisen, not to let them fade away, to bring them to greater growth, to the full perfection of development. This is called right effort." So he's talking about 4 things here that you're going to need to apply the effort to do. And here on the next one, I've broken it down for you, and I'm going to give you examples so you can see how to do this, right? So the first one, he's talking about preventing unwholesome mental states that have not arisen from arising in the mind. There are certain unwholesome things that are not currently in your mind right now. A good example of that is probably killing another human being. You probably have no interest in killing another human being. That's probably like the farthest thing from your mind right now. And what the Buddha is saying is prevent that sort of thing from ever coming into your mind, right? That's applying right effort. Because if you allow that to come into your mind, it's going to produce unwholesome results for you. So you need to apply the effort to prevent unwholesome mental states from coming into the mind. Then there's abandon unwholesome mental states that have arisen in the mind. There are certain unwholesome things that are in your mind right now, and you know what those things are, and you'll learn more and more about what those things are over the course of the path to enlightenment. But some examples might be like someone could be in an existing relationship and they could be craving sex outside of that relationship. And you know, if you allow that unwholesome mental state to reside in your mind, it's going to produce unwholesome results for you. You might act upon that, right? So you'd like to eliminate that. You'd like to apply right effort to cut that off and eliminate it out of the mind. Or anger, frustration, and irritation is a good example. That's an unwholesome mental state that's coming up in the mind, and you're going to need to apply the effort to eliminate that out of your mind. Then the third one is produce unarisen wholesome mental states to arise in the mind. So there are certain wholesome mental states that are not currently in your mind right now. And you're going to learn about those wholesome mental states as part of the path. And you're going to need to apply the effort to bring those wholesome qualities into the mind. A good example might be generosity. You're going to learn about how generosity, the giving and sharing of more than is strictly required in any given situation, such as your time, effort, energy, and resources, without any expectation of anything in return, this is going to train your mind to let go. Because the mind with craving, desire, attachment is it'll be selfish. It'll hold on to things pretty tightly. It won't want to share with other people. So you're going to need to practice generosity in order to be able to get to enlightenment. Enlightened beings aren't selfish, right? So if you're noticing that you don't have this wholesome quality in your mind where you tend to hold on to things very tightly, you're going to need to apply the effort to bring this wholesome quality into your mind where you're willing to share and practice generosity with others. Then compassion is a good example of this. Compassion is the concern for the misfortune of others. Let's just say you are indifferent and you could care less about what happens to other people. You see someone have a motorbike accident, you see a homeless person, you see someone struggling with drug addiction, you're just like, I don't care. It's not my friend, it's not my family, I don't care. Whatever. That's indifference, right? You're not going to get to peace and joy there. But also if you're on the other side of this, where you have worry and anxiety every single time you see somebody experiencing an unfortunate situation, you're not going to be peaceful and joyful there either. So you're going to need to bring your mind to the middle and apply effort to arise this wholesome quality of compassion, where you have concern for the misfortune of others. Then there's maintain wholesome mental states that have arisen, not allowing them to fade away, and work to increase their growth in the mind. There are certain wholesome qualities that are currently in your mind right now, and you're going to need to support those, encourage those. Don't allow them to fade by applying right effort. Right? So let's give some examples like loving kindness. You probably have loving kindness in your mind right now, that you have love and kindness. You have a genuine interest in seeing others be well, but it hasn't been brought to full growth and full perfection and full development, because in some situations you get angry and you're bitter and harsh and hostile to people. So you're going to need to apply the effort to maintain this whole loving kindness, to bring it up in the mind so it's permeating in your mind and you can be loving and kind with everybody in the world. Or let's just say sympathetic joy. Sympathetic joy is the joy for others' success, even if you didn't contribute to it, right? This is the opposite of jealousy and envy. You probably have sympathetic joy in your mind. If someone's like, hey, I'm thinking about going to Thailand. You've been to Thailand. And you're like, oh, yeah, you're going to have a great time in Thailand. Oh, that's so wonderful. You're going to Thailand. By the way, there's this lady that sells mango and sticky rice on the corner. You might be interested to give her a visit, right? So you have joy for this person's success because you have sympathetic joy in your mind. You have that wholesome quality, but it may not have been brought to full growth and full perfection and full development, because now when you're at work and there's a new position that opens up and you apply for it and somebody else applies for it and they get the job instead of you, you might get jealous or you might get envious. That's because your sympathetic joy hasn't been brought to full growth and full perfection and full development. So you're going to need to apply the effort to bring that up in the mind. So that's what right effort is, that you're preventing unwholesome qualities from coming into the mind, that any unwholesome qualities that are in your mind, you're eliminating those, applying the effort to get those out. Any wholesome qualities that are not currently in your mind, you're applying the effort to bring those into the mind. And any wholesome qualities that are currently in your mind, you're supporting them, encouraging them, not allowing them to fade. Bring them to full growth and full perfection of development. So these are just examples that I'm using here. So you're going to need to, over time, figure out what are the unwholesome qualities and what are the wholesome qualities. And what's going to help you to do that is the next factor. You wouldn't be able to practice right effort without right mindfulness. Okay, so here's right mindfulness. This is what the Buddha shares. He says, in what, monks, is right mindfulness? Here, monks, a monk resides, reflecting on body as body, dedicated, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside craving and worry for the world. He resides reflecting on feelings as feelings, dedicated, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside craving and worry for the world. He reflects, hold on. Plants in the way. He resides reflecting on mind as mind, dedicated, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside craving and worry for the world. He reflects. He resides reflecting on mental objects as mental objects, dedicated, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside craving and worry for the world. This is called right mindfulness. Okay, so there's 4 things here that he's talking about. Body as body, feelings as feelings, mind as mind, mental objects as mental objects. What he's talking about is the 4 foundations of mindfulness, which I'll explain to you guys what that is in a moment. But first, let's just talk about mindfulness in general. What mindfulness is in general, and this might be where you hang out for a few months, is where you build awareness of mind. That you become aware of the thoughts, the ideas, the feeling, the things that are going on in your mind, right? Because oftentimes in the unenlightened state, we don't even have an awareness of what's going on in our own mind. The way I think about this is it's like plowing through the world, knocking down the trees and burning up the forest. I did a lot of that. Maybe you did too, right? Where you're just going through the world, completely unaware of what's going on in your own mind, how you're impacting other people. You just plow through the world and you kind of smell some smoke and you look back and you see all those trees are knocked down and you're like, whoa, who knocked down all those trees? Who lit the fire? Oh, that was me that did that? Oh, okay. Well, now you need to have that mindfulness, that awareness of mind to understand what your feelings are, your thoughts, all these different things that are going through your mind. This is mindfulness, awareness of mind. Okay? Now, some people use this word mindfulness today in a way that the Buddha didn't use it. And if they use it that way, that's on them. But you would like to understand what this word means. What some people say is they might say, can you mindfully carry this glass of water to that table? What they're really saying is, can you carefully carry this glass of water to the table, right? That's not mindfulness. That's not what the Buddha taught. Now, if they use it that way, that's up to them, because not everyone's going to use this word in the same way, or that would be permanence, right? But what you need to be able to understand is what the Buddha is talking about is awareness of mind. Okay, having awareness of your mind. But more specifically, he's talking about the 4 foundations of mindfulness. Body as body, feelings as feelings, mind as mind, and mental objects as mental objects. What this is explaining to you the 4 things that you need to have awareness of in order to be able to purify your mind. You need to have awareness of the bodily sensations, which the bodily sensations that he's referring to here this is an early warning system that you have that's alerting you that you're about to become discontent. Before you become angry or sad or frustrated, or even having those pleasant feelings, or the neither painful nor pleasant, there's some bodily sensations that are occurring. And you're going to need to be aware of that, because that's the early warning system alerting you that you're about to experience a feeling. A conditioned feeling is about to form. So for something like anger, it's tingling in the body, tightening in the chest, tightening in the throat, heat in the face, pressure in the skull. You guys know about this? Have you seen this in your own examples, your own life, right? This is the early warning system alerting you. You're about to get angry. You're about to experience frustration or agitation or annoyance. And what the Buddha teaches you is apply right effort to cut that off and let it go. Don't allow the mind to form that conditioned feeling. Even the pleasant feelings, you might notice tingling across your shoulders, up the back of the neck, over the head. Some people call this warm fuzzies. I don't know if you ever heard that term before, right? It's very pleasurable to experience it, right? And the mind's going to indulge in it, but you need to cut that off and let it go. Because what this is an early warning system. Your mind and your body is telling you, I'm about to form a conditioned feeling. I'm about to form a conditioned feeling. I'm about to form a conditioned feeling here. And you say, nope, not going to let you do that. You apply right effort, right? You're restraining the mind. Because if you allow the mind to form the feeling, it's going to stay wired that way. You're not suppressing your feelings, and you're not repressing your feelings. You're actually cutting it off before it even becomes a feeling. The way you might think about it is that if you were in a boat and you were traveling from Australia to Indonesia and you were out in the middle of the ocean, you'd like to prevent the water from ever coming into the boat. Because once the water gets in the boat, you got a real problem to deal with. You got to get it out of here. So once the mind becomes angry, you got a real problem to deal with. You got to get it out. But if you can prevent it from ever coming into the mind, you've just protected your mind. And if you do that enough, your mind will never get angry. So in your journey to enlightenment, there's going to be times where you're noticing the bodily sensations coming up, and you're going to need to cut that off and let it go. And that's going to protect your mind. But sometimes you're not going to notice it as a bodily sensation. You're not going to be able to cut it off because your mindfulness isn't fully developed yet. So it is going to become a feeling. Right? You're going to experience the anger. You're going to experience the frustration, or you're going to experience that excitement. Yay, mom's coming to visit. Oh, I can't wait till she gets here. Right? You're going to experience that pleasant feeling. So if you didn't cut it off as a bodily sensation, cut it off as a feeling. Because if you don't cut it off as a feeling, it's going to affect the condition of your mind. The condition of your mind is for multiple minutes, hours, days. You're going to experience certain, for example, grumpiness or irritability. Do you remember being grumpy or irritable for like a week or two? Of course you do, right? You remember that time, multiple times where you were grumpy and irritable at somebody? That's because you didn't understand the 4 foundations of mindfulness. You didn't cut it off as a bodily sensation, and you didn't cut it off as a feeling. So now it affected the condition of your mind for multiple hours, multiple days, maybe even a week or two. And you walked around grumpy and irritable, right? That's not the way to live life. There's a better way of life that the Buddha is teaching you here, to cut off at the bodily sensations. Because if you don't do that, then it's going to form and feed what's called a mental object. The mental objects are those 10 fetters that we talked about yesterday. Those are the deeply rooted containers in the mind, like ill will, right? We weren't born with ill will. We didn't have ill will when we were born, right? We didn't go into the nursery at the hospital hating other babies, right? We didn't have that. We didn't have conceit when we went into the nursery, right? We didn't go into the nursery and be like, my crib is better than your crib. My mittens and my hat's better than your mittens and your hat, right? We didn't do that, right? That got formed in the mind, right? So when we were little kids, we wanted chocolate and ice cream from our parents. And when they gave it to us, we got really happy and really excited about that. But then at some point they said, no, you can't have chocolate and ice cream. And we got angry, we got frustrated. And then we didn't cut it off as a bodily sensation. We didn't cut it off as a feeling. It affected the condition of our mind for a few minutes, for a few hours. We were angry and frustrated. And then over time, it formed the mental object of ill will, this deeply rooted container in the mind. So you're going to need to have awareness of all four of the four foundations of mindfulness. And you build that over time. And that's where the next factor comes in. The next factor, let me share this before we go to the next factor. Let me share with you how this looks in a day-to-day basis, okay? Let's just say I'm watching the news. And as I'm watching the news, I notice the tingling sensation of frustration, agitation arising, and the chest is starting to get tight, and maybe there's heat in the face and pressure in the skull. Well, rather than just sit there and dwell in that, if you're noticing that bodily sensation, cut off the news. Go out for a walk. Go for a bike ride. Go get some water in the kitchen, right? Go do something else, right? That's what it means to cut off and let go, is you're going to need to redirect your mind towards something else. Don't allow your mind to form the conditioned feeling, right? So that's what you would like to be able to do. That's how it looks in action. That is, as you're noticing the bodily sensations, redirect the mind towards something else. And that's going to help you to cut it off and let it go, okay? So now, the way that you get this mindfulness, or this awareness of mind, this awareness of the four foundations of mindfulness, is with right concentration. What the Buddha is doing here is he's describing to you the jhanas. These are four preliminary phases that your mind goes through on your way to enlightenment, on your way to the first stage of enlightenment. But he doesn't describe how to practice right concentration here in the Eightfold Path. He's describing the results. He describes how to practice right concentration in other parts of his teachings. So that's what I'm going to focus you on, because you'll learn the jhanas in other programs and other courses and retreats that I share. So what he teaches you to do to practice right concentration is to develop a daily meditation practice and to practice singleness of mind in your day-to-day life. Your breathing mindfulness meditation is what's going to help you to develop your mindfulness or your awareness of mind. When we're focused on the breath, that's developing your concentration. When the mind moves off the breath and you notice that, that's your mindfulness. That's your awareness of mind, that you notice that the mind moved off the breath. And now when you cut it off and let it go, that's you training your mind to let go. Let go. Because the craving, desire, attachment, your mind's holding on. It doesn't know how to let go. So you're exercising the mind to cut off and let go. So if 10, 20, 30 times during your meditation, you have to let go, let go, let go, this is really good for you. You're developing your mindfulness, your awareness of mind, and you're developing your ability to let go. Your goal in this meditation isn't to eliminate your thoughts. It's to notice your thoughts sooner and sooner and cut them off and let them go easier and easier. So now when you're developing your meditation practice, you'll develop more and more mindfulness. And you're going to also need to learn loving kindness meditation, because that's going to help you eliminate your anger. And there's two other meditations that are more specialized. But essentially what you do is you build up to 2 or 3 meditations per day for about 30 minutes. And that can sound like a lot for some people, depending on where you are in your life. But there's probably certain unbeneficial things that you're doing. If you clean those out of your life, you'll have more time for meditation. So understand it can take you 6 months, a year, even 2 years to build up to this type of frequency and this type of schedule. What you'll notice is frequency frequency is more important than the duration. So if it's a matter of one meditation for 30 minutes or two for 15, the 2 for 15 is actually more impactful for your mind because your mind is more frequently having to let go. You're training it at 2 different times during your day. So you're like taking your mind to the gym and you're exercising the mind. That's what meditation is. We're going to talk about this in more detail this afternoon. I'm going to teach you all the ins and outs of it because that's what you need here in order to develop right concentration. You need the meditation, but you also is going to help you to develop your mindfulness, which is then going to help you apply right effort and cut off the discontent feelings so that you can get to the point where they no longer arise. An enlightened being doesn't even have a rising of discontent feelings anymore because the causes and conditions that are producing them have been eliminated. But in the process to get there, you're going to need to cut off and cut off and cut off. Then the second part of right concentration is practicing singleness of mind in your day-to-day life. What this means is to just do one thing at a time, right? If you're washing the dishes and your mind moves off of that, you would like to cut that off and let it go and come back to just focus on washing the dishes. If you're at work and you're daydreaming about the trip to Thailand that you're going to take in 3 months from now, cut that off and let it go, right? Bring your mind back to the business meeting. You'd like to just do one thing at a time. And as you do this more and more, where you're just practicing singleness of mind, your mind will become more and more concentrated. If you're eating, just make sure you're eating. Sometimes people are looking at YouTube videos and searching social media while they're eating. Their mind's actually flipping back and forth. Your mind actually can't do more than one thing at a time. It's impossible for your mind to do more than one thing at a time. If you've been taught to multitask, your mind actually isn't multitasking. You're doing one thing for like 3, 4, 5 seconds, and then your mind's rapidly cycling to the other thing for 3, 4, 5, 10 seconds, and then your mind's rapidly cycling to the other thing for 3, 4, 5, 10 seconds. So it's kind of like a racehorse running around a racetrack. And if you've ever been to a horse track where horses are racing around a track, they'll race around the track, but then when they go to the barn, they can't calm down. They're all hyped up because they've been running around the racetrack. So if you do that with your mind, if you go to work and 8 hours a day, 12 hours a day, you're running around the racetrack, when you go home, you'll have a hard time relaxing. That's why you have stress and you have anxiety because your mind's running around the racetrack all day long. And when you go home, the same thing's happening. You might even lay in bed and your mind's constantly cycling through your thoughts because that's what you're doing at work. So if I'm talking on the phone with mom and I'm watching TV and I'm eating a sandwich, I'm not actually doing all 3 of those things at one time. I'm talking to mom a little bit, I'm watching TV a little bit, and I'm eating a sandwich a little bit. And now this conversation that I think I'm involved in, I'm really not getting the most benefit out of that. This conversation could have been 10, 15, 20 minutes. It ends up being 45 minutes or an hour. And then maybe I said things that were unwise that I need to go clean up later because you can't bring your full wisdom to use things like right intention, right speech while you're talking to your mom because your mind's over here doing all these other things, right? So you need to be able to bring your full wisdom into the conversation, your full concentration. And you didn't get really the benefit of the TV program, and you might even have a stomach ache from the sandwich that you ate, right? So you like to just do one thing at a time. And now you do that really well, and there's nothing to go back and clean up because you made 100% wise decisions. You had a great conversation with mom. You didn't get bitter. You weren't hostile. You weren't harsh. You weren't lying. You weren't slandering. You weren't doing any of those kinds of things. And now there's nothing to go clean up. And you just move on to the next thing, right? So you like to just do one thing at a time. Anytime you see your mind doing something else, cut that off and let it go and come back. So right now, if you're thinking about lunch, cut that off and let it go. Come back to the classroom, right? Focus on what you're doing here. The way that I think about this is that if you had a piece of wood and you had a steel rod and you were grinding this steel rod back and forth, initially it's going to bounce around a lot because there's no groove there yet, right? But if you grind that steel rod back and forth enough, eventually you're going to get a groove going, right? And then when it pops out of the groove, you're going to know it and you're going to bring it right back to the groove. But eventually, if you grind the steel rod back and forth enough, you're going to get a deeper and deeper groove. The steel rod's never going to pop out because it's just always focused. It's always concentrated. It doesn't matter what's going on around you. You can maintain your focus and your concentration, right? So in order to get to that point, you're going to need to practice singleness of mind, just doing one thing at a time. Okay, so if you're eating, you're eating. If you're talking on the phone, you're just talking on the phone. If you're in a business meeting, you just focus on the business meeting, just one thing at a time. Okay, so just to summarize what we've been talking about, is right effort is taking initiative to eliminate unwholesome aspects of the mind and cultivate wholesome qualities in the mind. Right? Applying the effort to eliminate the unwholesome and bring in the wholesome. Right? Mindfulness is having awareness of mind, and you might just hang out with that for a few months, just building awareness of your mind, the ideas and thoughts that are going through your mind. But then more specifically, you'd like to be aware of the bodily sensations, the feelings, the condition of the mind, and the mental objects. This is the 4 foundations of mindfulness. And you'll get better and better at observing those all the time when you're practicing right concentration, where you're practicing meditation and you're developing singleness of mind. Until you start experiencing what's called the jhanas, you'll learn more about the jhanas. As you start practicing and putting together all the factors of the Eightfold Path, you're going to start experiencing these enhanced qualities of mind. And you'll know that your mind is in the jhanas. And when your mind is in the jhanas, there's something that you're doing there that you're going to kind of pivot and you're going to change your practice a bit. But we'll talk about that in another course. Okay? So this is the mental discipline section. Any questions on this? Yes. I think your mic's already on.
Yes. So my question is about the singleness of mind versus creativity. From my experience, a lot of the time when I'm doing repetitive activities like running or swimming, I think this is the most creative time for me, where I get the really great ideas. And I find that time very beneficial. But based on this teaching, there should be no time where my mind is drifting, right? Because when I'm swimming. Therefore, I should not be thinking of other things. But then how do I schedule for that time when I need to receive some inspiration? Do I need to allocate special time when I'm just thinking? Because that usually is not working for me.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say you need to schedule it, because that's not the way the creative mind works. But when you're noticing that your mind's arising this creativity and starting to have all these interesting thoughts, you just put whatever activity you were doing on hold. So let's just say you were swimming and doing laps, and all of a sudden you start getting all this creative thoughts. Just stop in the middle of the lane and just sit there. Oh, wow. Yeah, that would be a really good. Yeah, that's interesting. And now when you're done with whatever creative thoughts you have, you go back to swimming. Because see, the harm is that if I was washing dishes and I was thinking about, I don't know, going on some trip to Italy, well, now I'm not paying attention to what I'm doing, washing the dishes, and now a knife is going to cut my hand, and now I got to go to the hospital, right? Because I cut my hand. I wasn't practicing singleness of mind. There's people that are dead right now because they didn't practice singleness of mind, right? They were walking down the street, maybe in New York City, talking on the phone. They weren't paying attention to walking down the street, and whack, the car came out and hit them because they walked across the street and they didn't even see that car. Whack. Right? So if you're not practicing singleness of mind, you're going to experience unwholesome karma, unwholesome results. So you'd like to train your mind to just do one thing at a time. So if you're noticing the creative thoughts coming up, just pause whatever activity you're doing, whether it's 30 seconds or 5 minutes or 10 minutes or what have you. Think about those creative things and then go back to your activity. It's a different way of life. It's a better way of life. Right? Yeah, that's the training, right? Because your mind's so used to doing things this way, but you see the results that you're experiencing doing it that way. So if you're going to experience different results in your life, you're going to need to cultivate wisdom, make different decisions, and then you experience different results. And that's why the intention of renunciation is so important, because if we just keep doing the same things we've always been doing, then we're just going to keep experiencing those same results. But if we do something different, that's when we experience different results. And this is something different. So you'll need to apply effort to train your mind to do this. Yep.
Hello. My question is regarding meditation. So I do breathing mindfulness meditation, but I also like to do sometimes mantra meditation. I feel that also helps me to like focus on the mantra. Is that okay, or is something we shouldn't do?
Yeah, in this situation, it's not training your mind to do what you actually need to do, which is let go. What the mind's doing there is it's whatever thought you would have had, it's being replaced with the mantra. So your mind hasn't actually let go. You need to be able to train it to let go. This is why like meditating with music or things like this, it's really unwise because your mind hasn't actually let go. That's what we're going to be talking about this afternoon. So I would encourage you to not do that meditation. You're going to see so much more benefits for yourself, but it's a choice for you to make. But you won't get to enlightenment by meditating on a mantra because your mind hasn't actually let go. It hasn't learned to do that yet. It's just replacing whatever thought you would have had with the mantra.
Picking up on her question, when I'm running or sometimes swimming, I like to have music on. So if you're using music as a way to help the activity or house cleaning even, is that the same, or is that nitpicking the idea of having your head on only one thing?
Yeah, what you would like to do is go an extended period of time where you're not doing that, because oftentimes what the mind will do is like, say you're on a treadmill and now someone's listening to music. If they didn't have the music, they would experience boredom or they would be lonely, right? Because there's a craving there. And the mind thinks, with its lack of wisdom, the way to solve that is, let me just listen to some music or let me listen to a podcast. But that's not actually solving the problem, because the underlying problem is the craving for this stimulation. So what you would like to do is go an extended period of time where you're just running on the treadmill, if that's what you're going to do, or just swimming or just housework. And you do that for a year or two where you don't have this music playing. And now you can see that you're just as cheerful and just as joyful when you're listening to the music as when you're not listening to the music. And then if you'd like to bring the music in while you're cleaning the house, your mind will be very focused there and you don't have the craving and clinging any longer. But you're going to need to go an extended period of time without it in order to allow the mind to let go and not have that craving. So you shouldn't see any boredom or loneliness in the mind during those kinds of activities. But you'll never get to that point if you just keep the music around all the time.
Hello? My question goes back to the mental objects. I believe that's what it was. Okay, so you gave the example of family coming to visit. Your mom's coming to visit, okay, and you're excited about that. Are we not to be excited about that? Are we not to enjoy that excitement, like when you feel it coming up in the body? I mean, you know she's coming for the weekend. It is not a long-term thing.
Yeah.
So I'm confused because I don't understand why we would cut that off.
Sure. If you allow the mind to experience the conditioned pleasant feelings, then when that thing isn't happening, you're going to experience the painful feelings. So that's why, like, when they call and say, hey, we had a change of plans, we're not coming, you'll be frustrated or angry. Or when they leave and it's time for them to leave, you'll miss them. You'll be like, oh, you're leaving, I'm going to miss you so much. Right? So what you would like to learn how to do, which the mind doesn't know how to do in the unenlightened state, is you need to learn how to come to the middle where you can enjoy the experience without conditioned pleasant feelings. That sounds very foreign to an unenlightened mind. How can you enjoy something without a conditioned pleasant feeling? That's what the mind needs to learn how to do. And you'll be able to see how to do that the more that you pull back your cravings and you'll be able to come to the middle. Have you ever been somewhere before where you may be sitting on a bench and you're just looking at a landscape, or you're looking at something and you're like, wow, I don't need anything. I could just sit here all day and just thoroughly enjoy just sitting here. That's what we're talking about. Unconditioned happiness. that I don't need anything. I could just sit here all day and just be completely content and peaceful. So we might call that temporary enlightenment, even though there's no such thing as temporary enlightenment. For those few minutes, those few hours, your mind was experiencing unconditioned happiness where you were thoroughly enjoying what you were experiencing and you didn't need anything for that enjoyment. And that's what you would like to train your mind to be able to do more and more. Hey, my friend's coming into town. This is going to be great. I'm looking forward to it. We're going to have a great time. But if she doesn't come or he doesn't come, that's okay too, because I'm going to go do something else that I enjoy. And when they're here, I'm going to thoroughly enjoy spending time with them. But when they're gone, I'm going to enjoy that too. I can enjoy all of it. It's not just when they're here that I enjoy it. That's the conditionality of the pleasant feelings that you'd like to get rid of. And that takes training. Okay. I don't see any more questions. Oh, you have a question, Joe? Okay.
Is free will the same thing as craving?
No. Free will is where you have free will. You have the ability to make all your own decisions. And because of that free will, the individual will make either wise or unwise decisions. The craving is a decision that someone's making that because of the lack of wisdom, the craving continues. And that is someone's free will. But we all have free will. But not everybody has craving because enlightened beings no longer have craving.
And what's the difference between craving and desire?
Same thing. It's the longing, yearning, the chasing after the objects of your affection. Same thing. Okay, so I just walked you guys through this entire path. Right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. You're going to need to learn it more than one time because you see it's very detailed, and you're going to need to be able to commit it to your memory. So you're going to need to study it outside of class as well. As you're learning it, sometimes what students like to do is they like to schedule appointments with me, and they like to sit down and almost teach it to me to confirm that they know it. So maybe you study it for a month or 2 or 3, up to you. And then at some point you feel like you got it, you kind of schedule some time with me, either online or in person, and you kind of walk through it from your memory and you talk it out because you're going to need to commit this to your memory. That's the way you're going to be able to practice it. If you haven't memorized it, you won't be able to practice it. So you're going to need to spend some time to commit it to your memory. And that's what's going to help you to transform your mind on a day-to-day basis. Okay? So now it's just about 12:30. Would it be possible for us to take an hour lunch instead of an hour and a half? Come back at 1:30? Anybody craving to have an hour and a half lunch? Anybody angry or frustrated that they're not getting an hour and a half? What's that? You're in the middle? Okay, no problem. All right, so see? You guys just verified the third noble truth. When you eliminate craving, desire, attachment, you eliminate discontentedness. Nobody's discontent. If you have a craving for an hour and a half, you'd be angry, right? But now you're like, yeah, impermanence. Some days we get an hour and a half, some days we don't. That's okay, right? That's impermanence. But if you had a craving for permanence, you'd be upset or angry or frustrated. So there you can independently verify his teachings. Okay, so it's just about 12:30. So we'll get back together at 1:30, where I'm going to teach you all the ins and outs of meditation, and then we're going to actually do meditation together as well. So enjoy your lunch, and I'll see you guys later. Okay, Sawadee Kap. You're welcome.